Welcome to WEMJ in Guilford, New Hampshire. Now they also, I believe, cover Laconia, New Hampshire, if that's pronounced correctly. And we're glad to have you on board. You have no idea what a weird experience you are in for. We do strange things on this radio program, and tonight is going to be no exception. As you know, I have an abiding interest in time travel, and I have had all my life. I have connected with a man that you are about to hear who has a time machine. As a matter of fact, he has sold time machines. It's an interesting story. It was covered by Strange Magazine, issue number 14. His name is Stephen Gibbs. And if you will go to my website, there will be a link there which will take you to the Strange Magazine story on Stephen Gibbs. And that link is up there right now. So that, if you want to do a little research on what you're about to hear, there it is in written form. You can get there by going to my webpage at www.artbell.com. All right, here we go. And we're all going to learn about this together. Because I only spoke with Steve Gibbs. Well, we better find out here. Stephen, should I call you Stephen or Steve?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Steve's all right.
Steve's all right. All right, good. Steve it shall be then. Steve, when did you... Let's find out about you. You are not a scientist, are you?
Well, I'm an inventor.
Oh, okay. An inventor. Let me ask you, you're not on a portable phone, are you, Steve?
No, I'm not.
You're not, okay. We've got a little hum online for some reason. But we'll live with it. All right, anyway. So you're an inventor?
Yeah.
All your life?
No, not all my life. I just got started into electronics back in 1981. And,
well, that's a while ago.
And from that point on, just kind of added stuff to it.
So you're an inventor, entrepreneur. That'd be fair.
Yeah.
All right. How did you get interested in time travel?
Now, that's a good question. It was back in the year 1981 when I thought I was contacted by one of my other doubles, or counterparts.
Wait a minute, you mean yourself?
Yeah, for myself, from some alternate future universe. But I then later found out, well, it started out that with a letter that was dropped off at a video department store that, how can I put it, that was delivered to me by a man who worked at this video arcade store, and he claimed that somebody dropped it off on this on his counter there while I was gone, and I later stopped back. And
no, wait. Who was the letter? Was this letter to you?
Yeah. This letter was supposedly from me, from my other self,
from the future.
Yeah, from the future. And it was really strange because as soon as I started reading it, chills just started going up and down my spine. And but I later found out at a later date that that the letter was not written by my other self. That in fact, it was my other self who contacted the person that was working thinking there to write me this letter that would motivate me to
start work.
And to start to do research on this time travel stuff, and from that
man, how totally weird. I mean, when you read this letter, did it reference enough things about you so that you knew whoever it was had to know you?
Yes, it did. Well, it said stuff about pyramids and stuff like that, but it was enough to let me know that it was my other self. Yeah, it was no question about it.
From how far in the future?
I would say it was from, I would imagine any time from 1992 on up to 1998 or 1999.
So, and that was received in 1981.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would sure get your attention. That would sure get your attention.
Made my skin crawl.
Yeah. So, I can see how that would get you interested in time travel. Let's be clear here to the folks. There are a lot of people talk about time travel, and they talk about time travel in the mind.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's not possible, but that's not exactly what we're talking about here, is it?
Well, there's different types of time travel. There is physical time travel where you can move physically back and forward through time.
Both directions.
Yeah. And then there is quantum time travel, and that's where your soul can move into another one of your counterparts in a parallel universe.
Astral projection.
And then astral projection comes after that, and then mental time travel, which I suppose could be somewhat connected with astral projection.
But what you're talking about here, or what I'm primarily interested in, is you're telling me actual physical time travel is possible.
Yes, that's correct.
And you have a machine that can do that.
Yes, that's correct.
Before you got the circuit that allowed you to build this machine, how did you begin to reach out to try to figure out how to build or how to get a time machine?
Well, it started with an article that got published in a journal up in Canada, and some people, and the article was basically on time travel, and some people over in Pittsburgh, Massachusetts saw it, or this one person saw the article, and contacted me by telephone, and he went by the name of Jim Gerard, and then that was basically the person that at a later date sent me the schematic for what the device was first called the sonic resonator. Sonic
resonator.
Yeah, and then it later evolved into the hyperdimensional resonator, which I now sell through this business that I have.
You sell time machines?
Yes.
This is very cool. Do they work?
Yes, they do.
All right, wait. I guess before we get to that, look, I'm a ham operator, so I'm somewhat, at least technically, competent. I've been a microwave engineer, and I'm sort of curious, what is this, or as much, let's put it this way, as much as you're willing or can talk about, are there aspects of this that you don't let out? Proprietary, in other words?
What do you think?
Secret.
No, I don't keep any secrets from anybody. I just tell them flat out what it can do and what it can't do.
All right, when I talked to you earlier today, it was very brief, but one of the things you did express was concern for your own safety.
Yeah, that too, a little bit. I'm a little bit leery about making public appearances or going up to see somebody in person, because I have encountered a lot of negative feedback from that area, and I run into a lot of, should I say, people that you would not wish to talk to in person.
Why would they be unhappy with you? What do they accuse you of, or what would make them feel antagonistic toward you?
It could be any number of things, I suppose. One of the reasons why maybe perhaps that I'm getting some negative feedback there is because maybe the government doesn't want this information to be released to the public for the simple reason they're afraid that it might fall into the wrong hands. But
I should say.
But by the same token, I really don't have nothing to worry about there because, like I told lots of other people, that these generators that I build and sell generate infinite amounts of tachyon particles, which deals with basically with pure white light energy.
Right.
And if a person, so basically, since the device is, the way I believe, is tuned into the Creator, anybody who has bad intentions.
All of a sudden I see why you get that kind of feedback. Tuned into the Creator. Right there you've made a lot of antagonists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
But you see, anybody who has any bad intentions aren't going to be able to use the device for evil purposes, because it is a concrete white light generator. And so only the people who have pure intentions are going to get results.
All right, well, Strange Magazine did an article on you, issue number 14. We've got a link on the webpage. So they apparently felt there was enough validity to what you're doing to send out a reporter and write a big story about you. Was it a good story?
Oh, yes. It was several pages long. I would say something like 3 or 4 pages. The interview was all done on telephone, though.
Right. Right. I understand. Now the device itself, you say it generates white light?
Yeah, pure white light energy.
White light energy.
Or tachyons.
Tachyons. Okay. Pardon my ignorance. What's a tachyon?
Well, it's a time particle is what it is. It's a particle that basically has multi-dimensional properties, which allows it to move through time.
All right.
I would imagine it deals pretty much with soft light particles, or that would be about the most I could explain on tachyons. That, well, there's basically, one other thing I could say would be that there are 3 different types of tachyons. There's positive, negative, and zero tachyons. And your positive ones go into the future, your negative ones go into the past, and the zero tachyons go into, I suppose, other dimensional realms, or can lock onto other dimensions.
With your machine, if you want to go into the future, I remember the old H.G. Wells deal, where you'd push a lever forward or reverse from a center point to go either ahead or behind in time.
Yeah.
Is that the way it works, or is yours a different setup?
Yeah, mine's a slightly bit different setup. It's based on radionics. What it does, it takes your soul energies, steps it up through the zero vector, and then converts it into 2 points of resonance.
Yikes.
And when it creates whenever you have 2 points of resonance, you always get a time warp. Always. At least this is what my equation has stated.
All right, Susan. Wait. You lost me. So if you lost me, you lost some others. Let's start at the beginning. You said our soul.
Yeah. Yeah, it steps up the soul energies that you transmit into it. Well, once you get the stick on the rubbing plate, it has a
stick on the rubbing. Wait, Steve. Stick on the rubbing plate. Hold on. Let's go through the first thing you said. You said our soul, which I believe is an electrical thing of energy. There's energy in our soul. I believe that.
Yeah.
So does this receive that energy?
Yes.
It receives the energy. All right. And then does what with it?
It steps it up through the diode circuit, which is built inside of the circuit, or built inside of the box. And then after the and after it steps it up, it divides it.
All right, again, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because I really, really, really want to understand this. We're at the half-hour break. Just relax. When I come back, I'm going to ask you what frequency our souls operate at. You know, Kenneth, what is the frequency? I think that's the first thing we've got to know. Stephen Gibbs is my guest. We're going to talk tonight about a time machine. We'll be right back.
This is TRN and CBC, Talk Radio Network and Chancellor Broadcasting Company, home of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Now, here again, Art Bell. Tonight's topic is cool. We're talking with Steve Gibbs, and Steve Gibbs has a time machine, a real time machine. And we're going to slow him down. We're going to find out, if we can, exactly how this thing works. And by the way, I can see a picture of Steve Gibbs here, because if you'll go to my website, www.artbell.com, you will see a jump point, and you can go over and take a good look at not only Steve, but or is that the author? I'm not sure. We'll find out. And there's an article here about Stephen Gibbs, a man who built a time machine, and it will give you details. I'm getting a lot of faxes already. How do we find out more about this? How do we get one? We'll get to that, I suppose. But they want to know more. So obviously, go to my website, jump over, and read the article written about Steve Gibbs in Strange Magazine. It's up there. All right. Let me let's find out here right now. Steve?
Yeah.
Is that photograph of you?
Yeah, that's just the picture of my face.
Yeah, that's right. They sort of put a blue circle around the face. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you are. I'll be doggone. Anyway, getting back to where we were, our soul, our being, our energy, what frequency do you know that to be?
Well, I think our souls oscillate at around 7.8 hertz cycles per second.
Sounds about right. 7.8 hertz. I believe, you know, I've done interviews. Have you ever heard of HARP?
Yes, I have.
The HARP Project in Alaska. I've interviewed Dr. Nick Begich and others, and they too talk about frequencies in this range. 7.8 hertz, way, way down there. All right, so your device picks up this frequency of 7.8 hertz.
Yeah.
And then does what with it?
Well, it takes your soul energy over the frequency and steps it up through the diode circuit.
Right. As you would like a doubler? In other words, you can use diodes to double voltage, for example.
Yeah, no, there's no doubler in it. What it does, it takes these energies and it divides it into an AC-DC field.
Okay.
And this sets up 2 points of resonance. And whenever you have 2 points of resonance, according to my time equation, you end up creating a time warp. And after this frequency has gone through the circuit, it is then transmitted. Well, basically, it stepped up to the zero vector after the frequency is divided. And
okay, there's where you lost me. Zero vector.
Okay.
Zero
Going
vector.
too fast.
Zero vector. What is a zero vector?
Zero vector is referred to some scientists as the sphere, or what I refer to as the creator.
Is that anything like 0-point energy?
Yeah, that would be on the same basis, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Then that makes sense. All right, so 7.8 hertz to diodes to 0 vector?
Yeah, it transfers it through the zero vector out of the diode circuit and on into an electromagnet which hooks up to the machine.
An electromagnet?
Yeah.
What kind?
Just a electromagnet with 21 gauge magnet wire wrapped around a steel core.
Okay. And how much voltage or current apply to it?
It's 110 volts.
110 volts. AC.
Yeah.
AC then.
Yeah. Just this device just hooks right up to an ordinary outlet.
Wow. You know, so far, this makes sense to me. As long as I'm able to stop you and find out what it means, so far it actually does make sense to me. All right. So you've got an electromagnet acting in what way? In other words, influencing, putting a field around all of this, or what is the electromagnet acting on?
See, the electromagnet acts to transmit the soul energies, which are stepped up through the circuit, and then it is then, in other words, it transmits the energy then into your stomach chakra, which is done when you place the electromagnet over the stomach region.
Oh, so you take this machine and you place it near your stomach?
Yeah. You place the open end of the electromagnet over the stomach region, and then that transmits the energies into the stomach chakra, which then conditions your soul and aura for time travel. It just basically programs your soul to initiate the commands.
Wow. You have, well, let's go back to the first time you finally got this machine together. How many failures did you have before you succeeded, before you got it right?
None. Actually, got it right the first time.
And that was because you got the schematic from somebody else.
Yeah. But I was thinking, when I got the schematic, wouldn't it be a nifty idea if instead of just using it for time travel, that it could also be converted into a radionics machine, which could be used not only for healing and for increasing a person's psychic abilities, but for tuning them into the Creator as well.
I now begin to see why you're in trouble with a lot of people. In other words, you're in touch with the God force. And there are a lot of people out there who are going to go, well, I can't repeat what they would say.
Well, I hope so.
But yeah, I know. I now understand perfectly. All right. When then was the first success of actual physical time travel?
The first actual jump physically through time, I would say was in the month of October in 1986.
October of 86.
And I was working with
by the way, did you have any help, or were you doing this all by yourself?
I was doing this all by myself.
Uh-huh. And your family and your friends, did you tell them what you were working on?
Yeah, but my mother thought I was full of beans, so...
She did, huh?
Yeah.
Your own mother? You mean your own mother?
Yeah.
How disappointing.
Yeah, well, she has an open mind, otherwise she probably wouldn't allow me to do research on this stuff, but she doesn't like to let people know that she...
In other words, she doesn't tell the neighbors over coffee, my son, the time machine maker and traveler.
No, no.
All right. Do you still live with your family?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And we're not going to give your exact location, or maybe you are. I don't know.
Well, if people wish to, you know,
but you're out
of the catalog or something, you know.
You have
give my address.
Oh, you have a catalog.
Yeah, yeah.
No kidding. You're out on a farm, right?
Yeah.
And is that where you've done the work on the farm?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right. Do you have like a workshop or I don't know, a time travel room or?
Well, yeah, it's a workshop. It's down in the basement that where I build the machines at, and then I do the finishing touches in my office room upstairs here. And
I see.
Getting ready to ship off.
How many time machines have you manufactured?
I would imagine well over 100.
Wow!
Since 1986.
So there could be 100 time travelers out there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my!
Problem of it is, the reason why I don't have more feedback on them is because the ones that usually end up using them don't stay around very long. They end up disappearing to some other time.
Of course they do. Just as a matter of idle curiosity, of the people that you've talked to who want to do physical time travel, and you know, we'll get into the cases, but do most of them, I'm curious, want to go forward or reverse in time?
Most of the time they want to go back into Earth's past to get away from it all.
Yeah, I understand that.
They realize that there are some upcoming Earth changes that they just would
rather not go through. Oh boy, does that ever make sense. Is there any favorite period of time, would you say, that, you know, talking to a bunch of people, I mean, when somebody calls you up, I don't know how they hear about you, maybe the article in Strange Magazine, is that mostly how people have heard about your machine?
Well, I also advertise, yeah, that's part of it, but then I also advertise through Fate magazine, Nexus.
Oh, you do?
And then through, there was another one, Alternate Perceptions. And those plus my advertisement up on the website with my interviews, basically.
Uh-huh.
What?
Well, what I was beginning to ask, you know, when you talk to all of these people, however it is they've heard about you, does there seem to be a favorite time segment for people to go back to?
It seems like a lot of people like the 1500s the best.
The 1500s?
For the simple reason the ecology back in those days was extremely well.
Everything was virgin.
And, I mean, the air was clean.
True.
People, I've talked to people over in California who said that the people that go back to those periods don't ever want to come back because everybody's so kind and loving towards one another.
Well, that's pretty much true, but I mean, people even back then were getting run through with swords, stuff like that. But I suppose it depends on, you know, that's probably a lot of pop culture. I mean, even then, it wasn't all sword fighting. It was, I'm sure, there were a lot of really wonderful places to live.
Yeah.
The entire structure of family and society was utterly different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there was one person who I sold a unit to went by the name of Khalil Lutfi, who lived in Chicago, Illinois.
you're being heard in Chicago right now. What was his name?
Khalid Lutfi. It's spelled Kalilutfi.
Okay.
And he had bought a machine from me, and he had the most incredible doggone experiences I've ever heard of in connection with this machine, other than this Michael Francis Mazurkowitz, who, used it also for physical time travel.
All right, well, we'll get to him. What about the fellow from Chicago?
Yeah, well, anyhow, he, last I heard from him, he was thinking about activating it over a grid point with the help from his sister. And they were planning on, I guess, going back to the time period of the Greeks.
Really?
To live there, because he had journeyed back there astrally and really liked it there. He claimed he stayed there for something like a week before he returned back to his own physical body.
So in other words, a lot of people will use astral travel to sort of scout out a time period.
Yes, you could do it like that, yes. But anyhow, the last I heard from him, he was going down to Idaho, and after that, he disappeared into thin air. Nobody knew where he went.
Okay, now here's one little problem that I see, just from a practical point of view.
Yeah.
Now, when you sell machines to people, and they sort of more or less disappear,
yeah.
Sometimes I would think the family and friends of the disappeared would be concerned, and that the police would be concerned. In other words, these people, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
And that amounts to at the very least, a missing person report, I would think, and some sort of investigation on the part of the police that might even, imagine foul play.
Yeah.
Has that ever been an issue?
No, not with, no, he was just,
Or, I mean, do even family members call you up?
No.
Something like, hi, Stephen, I'm so-and-so. My son bought a time machine from you, and he seems to be gone.
It's, yeah, I can understand what you're getting at. Generally, the people that buy these from me are either, well, I see that the person by the name of Khalid Lutfi who bought the machine from me, he was an orphan to begin with.
Uh-huh.
And he was staying with he was staying at a halfway place that was run by a bunch of nuns over in Chicago. And so, when he disappeared, there was no family concern on his behalf.
Well, now that makes sense. It also makes sense that people who would want to time travel are probably dissatisfied or not very well connected in this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It seems like a lot of the people that I run up against are people that are separated from their family,
Yeah.
bad disagreements.
Yep. No, that's totally logical. Totally logical. Otherwise, with connections, a family, a wife, friends, community involvement, why would you want to leave?
Yeah, that's true.
So these are people who just basically want out. Have you ever run into anybody who wants to go forward?
Oh yeah, I've run into some people who have wanted to see what the 21st century would be like. And, I think that's where one guy is totally went to in Australia.
Really?
This guy had bought a unit from me back in, I think it was 92 or 93, and he had bought me a ton of crystals from me to use in connection with. I mean, he bought something like, $50 or $60 worth of double terminator laminated quartz crystals to use in connection with it because he wanted to be guaranteed the assurance that he was going to go physically through time.
Well, all right. Look, we will get to that. We're at the top of the hour. Relax. You've got several minutes. Grab a cup of coffee. We'll come back and continue with this. Time travel. This is a man who has built and now manufactures time machines. Real, physical time machines. His name is Stephen Gibbs. I'm Art Bell, and this is CBC.
This is the CBC Radio Network.
I'm talking tonight with a man who has built a time machine. You don't believe it, do you? Stephen Gibbs is his name. Strange Magazine did a very extensive article on him, and we have a link to it on our webpage. So if you want to know more about his time machine, and we're going into great detail here. That's right, I said time machine. Then go to my webpage, and you'll see a jump link to the article all about Steve Gibbs right now. It's hard to go into the last hour completely, but to recap, Steve Gibbs lives on a farm in the Midwest. Steve has a workshop in the basement, a finishing area in the top of his house. He makes time machines. And I know this will sound like some gibberish, I guess. Steve, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the mind or the soul operates at about 7.8 hertz.
Yeah.
Which is logical to me because it's the heart frequency or very near it. And just about everybody I've had on has agreed that our brain works at about that frequency. Then your device then goes to diodes, which somehow, let's see if I can remember, divide this frequency into an AC-DC component, respectively. It then goes to what's called the zero vector.
Well, it stepped up through the zero vector.
Stepped up through the zero vector, or otherwise known as zero-point energy. This audience will know about that. And then the whole thing is affected by an electromagnet, which is how many turns of wire?
Well, I don't know how many turns is on it. It has 21 gauge magnet wire on it.
Okay, and you're activating that with 110 AC.
Yeah. And that electromagnet sits over the stomach region, or should I say the open-ended electromagnet sits over the stomach region.
Do you hold it there, or do you strap it there?
You just hold it. It has some handles on the electromagnet that you just simply hold it in place.
Like you were degaussing your belly or something.
Yeah.
All right, and then the soul and the aura are thereby affected, and time travel. If you're now, one important point is you've got to be near a grid point on the Earth. That is an area of magnetic anomaly, or what?
Yeah. Well, that's basically an area where the gravitational ley lines intersect one another.
Okay. Well, are there many of these?
Oh, yeah, they're all around. The only problem of it is only certain types can transport you physically through time. Generally, the ones that are capable of doing this are the ones where UFOs are sighted over.
Somehow that figures. This all began when Stephen received a letter that he thought was from himself, and in fact, really in a way was from himself, written by somebody else.
Yeah.
Delivered to a video store way back in 1981. In effect, telling him to proceed with this. So he got a schematic from a guy, where?
From Pittsburgh, Massachusetts.
And that was a schematic of this machine.
Yes.
Now, there's a man in Chicago who bought one of these machines, and he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. You've sold 100 machines.
Over 100.
Over 100. How many of those people do you think are just gone?
Oh, boy.
Just a guess.
Just a guess, I would imagine over 36.
Over 36?
I would say anywhere from 36 to 50 people.
All right, now these are people that are gone, and they're not coming back.
Yeah. See, not everybody's interested in time travel to buy these machines from you. Some just buy them for the simple reason of either increasing their psychic abilities, or else, or else in connection with this, like help healing people with it.
Right. But I am particularly interested in the time travel aspect of it.
Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to time travel with this, could I do it?
Oh yeah. Yes. All you have to do is locate your grid point using a pair of dowsing rods. Dowsing rods are used, like to
Oh, I know what they are. My wife can douse. So you locate a grid point, which is where the dowsing rods come together?
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a lot of them. Now, dowsing rods are used generally to find water.
Yeah.
So if you were trucking along with some dowsing rods and they came together, how do you know whether you found a grid point or water, or would they be the same?
I would say they could almost be the same, depending on the strength of the vortex. But it would. I don't know if there would be any. The ones that were created by water, I don't think would be as strong as the grid sites that were created from quartz deposits.
Quartz, yes. You mentioned crystals earlier. Are crystals used to enhance the effect of all this somehow?
Well, yeah. I usually, the unit can do pretty much everything by itself, but once in a while somebody might need a little bit more energy in order to accomplish this, and so what I do, I usually send a double terminated quartz crystal with every unit that I send out.
A double terminated quartz crystal?
Yeah.
What would that be?
That's a crystal with that's a quartz crystal with 2 points on it.
Oh, okay.
One on each end.
All right. All right. Does that actually physically attach to the unit, or simply need to be? In other words, what do you do with it?
It's inserted into the witness well, and it's designed to step up the light energies a little bit more.
Huh. Well, that would make sense too.
Yeah.
Crystals are used, I believe, to amplify lasers, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. There's an interesting, the reason why I use double terminated quartz crystals because they have some interesting time harmonics built right into them. Which actually, if you've got a large enough double terminated quartz crystal, you could just simply locate your grid point and just take the crystal with you.
And use that.
And use that to travel physically through time. Just simply by programming the crystal to transport you to whatever date you want to go to.
Now there's another question. With your machine, how do you determine, you talk about tachyons. That's one part that I left out, tachyons. How do you determine which direction you're going to go and how far?
Well, that's determined radionically. In other words, let's say, for example, you want to travel to like January 27th, 1957.
Right.
So after you place the time coils around your head, which hooks up to the hyper resonator.
Or you've got to put these around your head.
Well, there's prime coils that hook up to the unit that fits around your head, plus there's an electromagnet that hooks up to it also. And but once you've got the headband placed or coils around your head, you then concentrate on the question: what are the rates while you're stroking the rubbing plate? The rubbing plate, acts as a pendulum. And while you're stroking the rubbing plate and turning one or the other dials on it, you then concentrate on the question, what are the rates that will transport my physical body and all of its components to January 27th, 1957. And as soon as you get a stick on the rubbing plate.
A stick? No, what do you mean a stick?
It's when your fingers stick while you're stroking it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. As soon as you get a stick, then that means that the rate has been found. You stop turning the top down. Then you go to the second dial and do the same as before. There's two dials on the machine.
Wow.
And once you get a stick for both dials, then the coordinates are already set into the machine, and then all you have to do now is to activate it over a grid point on the day of the full moon.
On the day of the full moon?
Yeah, and then position the opening of the electromagnet over the stomach chakra, and it should transport you within less than 3 minutes.
In other words, goodbye.
Yeah. 2 minutes and 45 seconds to be exact.
2 minutes and 45 seconds, and you're on your way.
Yep.
Ooh. What is it like? I've got a million questions. Beginning with, what is it like to travel in time? In other words, when that 2 minutes and 45 seconds elapses, and you're someplace else, do you feel the transition? Is it like an NDE where you go down some long white tunnel, or do you go through something, or are you just suddenly poof on the other end?
Well, according to the experiences of one person who had bought a unit from me in Great Falls, Montana, he said that you first initially feel an earthquake.
An earthquake?
Yes, and then all of a sudden, a huge white light will surround your physical body, but it's so fantastically bright that you cannot open your eyes. And then things just fade out from under you, and you start drifting through a void. And then all of a sudden things, afterwards, after you drift through this void for a certain period of time, then things just start forming around you again, and you end up finding yourself at the time that you programmed into the unit.
What about places? In other words, for example, if you're going to do this at a certain location,
yeah,
how do you know where you're going to pop out? Is it at all worrisome where you're going to pop out on the other end? You don't want to end up in the middle of a rock or a building,
no,
or something like that.
Well, see, you'll pop out at the same location that you left.
I got you there. But what if the location was not like it was? I mean, if you go back to, say, 1500, you talked about some people that went back that far.
Yeah.
There could have been a castle there or something.
Yeah, that's part of the danger, but I think what would happen is the grid site would then move to a safer location is what would happen, because it cannot, I don't think grid sites can occupy a solid object, but I don't want to say that for certain, but so, you know, there is a certain element
of danger
involved in it, yes.
Now, of those that have gone on to whatever, how sure are you that these 35 people or more are not dead as doornails?
Well...
No, I don't mean dead here, because we would have their charred little bodies. I mean dead somewhere else.
Well, Michael Francis Berkowitz over in Great Falls is able to jump back and then return safely, and so I'm pretty certain that from that report and from what a few others have told me, that they reached their destination point safely. But I can't be certain about all of them. Now, some might have even gotten trapped in other dimensions, for all I know. There is
a definite possible hitch.
There is a little bit of a danger there. That I haven't ever heard of anybody with the hyper resonator getting trapped in other dimensions yet, but I suspect there might have been a few who may have had bad intentions, and they suffered the consequences because of it.
In other words, you've got to go into this with good intentions.
Well, yes.
Now, let's say I had your machine, and I wanted to go ahead to 1999 and take a look at the market and see what was up, what was down, what stocks would be good to buy, and then come back and thusly invest my money. Would that be considered bad or even greedy intentions?
Gosh, it could be. I don't know if, let's see, if there was any amount of evil connected with it.
Evil.
Or should I say, tremendous amount of greed connected with it.
Greed. All right, suppose that you knew that was my motivation. I want to do that. I want to go get stock price and make $1 million. And I came to you, I said, that's what I want. I want, and I want to buy one of your machines, and that's what I'm going to do with it. Would you sell it to me under those conditions?
Probably not, because I know right there that the guy probably wouldn't get results.
All right, hold it right there. We'll be right back to you. Steve Gibbs is my guest. Stay right there.
This is TRN and CBC, Talk Radio Network and Chancellor Broadcasting Company, home of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Hi, this is Art Bell. I've got a program called Coast to Coast AM. It's all-night talk radio. It's spontaneous. It's kind of strange. It's got some rough edges to it, but it's what I think real talk radio is all about. It's right here. It's called Coast to Coast AM. Join me here in the middle of the night. CBC, Chancellor Broadcasting Company, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. CBC, Chancellor Broadcasting Company. For the strange and unusual, it's Greenland with Art Bell. What do we discuss on Greenland? Two fascinating areas. Is there life after death, and are we alone in the universe? Two ultimate questions mankind's been trying to answer for thousands of years. We'll be talking about it this week, right here on Greenland.
Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, here I am. Stephen Gibbs is my guest. If you want to know about his time machine, there's an article in Strange Magazine. I think that's what it's called, Strange Magazine. And you can get to it by going to my webpage right now, and you can read all about it. And read all about Stephen Gibbs. www.artbell.com is my website. You'll see the link to the Gibbs article right at the top of the page. And we'll get back to Stephen Gibbs, and I have so many questions about time travel. Kind of like an earthquake, he said, when you go. All right, Stephen Gibbs is my guest, and he is at a farm at a remote location. We may tell you more here shortly. Stephen, if I had your mom on the phone right now, can I ask you, Stephen, how old are you?
I'm 39 right now.
39, all right. If I had your mom on the phone right now, and I said, hey, Steve's mom, tell me about your son and the time machines that he builds, what would she say?
That's hard to say. Probably think, I don't get into that crazy stuff.
I see. All right. Look, we will eventually get some calls here. Every line is locked up, and it has been for a long time. But I've got some faxes here, and these make sense. Hi, Art. This is a question for Steve. Forgive me for asking this, but if time travel is possible, why is Stephen Gibbs still here?
That's for me?
That's for you. I couldn't answer it, Steve. Why are you still here?
No, that's because I'm not in any position to travel to any faraway period as yet. And not only that, it's not as simple as one might think in locating the right type of grid point.
Well,
go physical.
oh, all right then.
Mike Mazurkowitz had good luck because he lived close to a place, you know, where there was UFO sightings. But since I'm really not in a position to go any place, since I would have to probably start all over again, I just kind of like it here for now.
Well, that was going to be my question, and I think that's really the answer. In other words, the people that have gone, 35 or so at least, they wanted to go. They wanted out of here. They wanted to go somewhere else. They didn't have a lot of family attachments, that kind of thing. Even if you could go, the answer then really is you don't want to.
Well, not really. I do make jumps, though, from time to time, but they're only short jumps, like maybe a year into Earth's future.
All right. That brings me then to the next facts. It says, this is Mitch in Seattle. Art. Steve says he's traveled to the future. He also mentioned that he liked to travel to the past to stay away from the Earth changes. So the obvious question, Steve, is from the people that you've talked to, that you've sold machines to, or your own knowledge, what's coming?
From what I saw, and from what other people have seen, that by the year 2000, the Earth will have already shifted its axis.
Its axis.
I don't know. I think it'll just be a minor shift, but nonetheless, it'll be enough of a shift that it'll create a pretty doggone major earthquake, global-wise. And when I used the hyper-resonator a few years back, I went to the year 1997, around the month of September.
Later this year?
Yes.
And
I saw World War III in progress.
Oh, Steve.
Now, I hope that this will be postponed. See, not necessarily everything you see in the future will come to pass.
You're talking about nuclear war.
Somewhat similar, yes. It was a huge aerial battle that I saw when I landed there, and then I saw a huge intercontinental ballistic missile being
launched. That's bad.
Being launched.
Bad.
And I don't know whether, well, it looked like it was going out, but I would imagine there was a few missiles coming in too. But what I'm hoping is that this will be delayed for, I hope, for another 10 years.
Well, now, see, I was going to begin to ask you about the nature of time. The past is fixed. In other words, it's already occurred in our timeline, anyway, or our dimension.
Yeah.
But the future, it is your view the future is malleable? It could be changed?
Okay, there are some things that you cannot change in our future. There are things that are predestined to happen. If you see there's some things you can change, whereas there's some things you can't. Now, when going into Earth's past, you can change the past, but you only change the past for the person that has traveled back there. In other words, let's say, for example, somebody died in a car accident. Okay, you wanted to go back and prevent that accident from happening.
Yes.
So you move back in your time with your time machine, and you intercept that event. Well, just at the moment that you intercept that person from colliding with another vehicle,
yeah.
All of a sudden you hear a large boom, thud, or popping noise, and right then you end up shifting over into another universe that is following a different course in time that matched with the event that you altered.
In other words, it's going to happen come hell or high water. You might be able to alter it in one timeline, but not another. Is that what you're saying?
No. When you go back, you can change it, but when you do, you shift yourself over to another universe that corresponded with the event that you altered. In other words, the person would still be dead in this universe.
But in another one, he might still be alive.
Yeah, that's correct.
I've got it.
that way it doesn't disrupt the space-time continuum, because if that were to happen, God only knows what would. The whole universe would break down.
So you're saying then there is a natural,
it's a law. It's a time law that can't be broken. It's because if it were possible to change our own direct past timeline, God, this
would be a disaster.
Yeah, it'd be just a utter disaster.
All right. Here's another one. Very interesting guest, Art. It makes some sense to me. The machine makes sense. But if you go back to an era before electricity and you don't like it there, how the hell do you get back? It's a really big practical question, since according to him, you have to plug the thing in for it to work. Thanks, Mike in Portland.
Well, it's basically a time limit on when jumping through time. Now, once in a while, you can get locked into another time period, which would probably be the danger there. But normally, though, there is a time limit on how long you can stay in another time period. Generally, anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, and then you just simply move. You just automatically return. Now, if you don't want to, if you want to stay longer than 6 or 9 hours, then you have to program the time, the amount of time that you want to stay in that period into the machine.
I've got you. And your machine allows that to be done.
Yeah. Now, an interesting feature about the time travel is, and certain people eventually realize this sooner or later, is that it has a unique advantage of rejuvenating the body after you return back to the present. In other words, you can go back, let's say, with a broken ankle or a serious illness or sickness.
Right.
And then return back a few seconds later, and you're completely cured.
Now, that certainly has good practical application.
Yeah, it turns the aging cycle back to the time when you just stopped growing.
Wow.
And
all right,
this has already been proven by other time travelers. It's been proven by Mike Mazurkowitz over in Great Falls.
Boy, would I love to talk with Mike Mazurkowitz.
Yeah.
Or some of the others that you have sold these machines to. Do you generally have, now when you sell a machine, do you find there's a lot of customer satisfaction? Or is it kind of like the doctors who, when the patient dies, they can't bitch about the service?
I generally don't get that many complaints.
But why would that be? Because the machine works as advertised, or because the people, as I said, really can't complain when they're...
Well, the interesting thing about it, the reason why I don't get too many complaints is, well, maybe the reason too is because they disappeared, and
well, there you are.
Even if they don't accomplish time travel, they can still be able to use it either for help healing people, or for increasing their psychic abilities, or for increasing their intelligence.
Some lesser thing. All right. Here's another one. All right. Please ask Steve about this statement from Strange Magazine in the interview. Stephen Gibbs.
Yeah.
When they sent some scientists from the Montauk Project into Earth's future, they hit a barrier in the year 2012. When they tried to go past the barrier from 2012 to 2013, they couldn't go through. They could only go around it. But after they went around it, they found that all life on this planet had been wiped out. Everything gone. Cities in ruins. No life found anywhere. At least they couldn't find any. They concluded that everything had been wiped out. Sounds an awful lot like the event Major Ed Dames has talked about. That's another story, by the way. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I feel that, however, that is the future that is going to happen if the Lord doesn't come back and shorten those years.
So there's some kind of barrier at 2012.
Barrier there. Right at the end of the 7-year tribulation period.
Boy, I'll tell you, I've talked to a lot of people who have said that. You're not the only one.
And but the way I kind of figure, though, if the Lord doesn't shorten those years, that's basically what's going to happen to this earth.
Stephen, I've talked to remote viewers who have tried to look out past that point, and they too say it's like a block. and they can't get past it, and they can't figure out why. And Ed James has said that some gigantic, his word, spiritual event is going to occur. You consider that possible?
They say, a lot of people say that the Earth is going to transcend into another dimension, but if there ain't no life on this planet, then what's there to ascend to? I mean, but I personally don't think it's going to be a dimensional shift myself. I think the reason why there's a barrier there is because time is solely connected with human consciousness. And, well, it's somewhat connected with human consciousness. And so if you eliminate the humans, you got your barrier.
Yeah, I'll say that'd make a barrier. All right.
Now, there could be a dimensional shift, but I think that more or less is connected with the rapture occurring.
That may be. That would certainly be a spiritual event, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
All right. All right, so a lot of people then, and I understand this, and they go into the past. For me, I really dug the 50s. You know, I mean, I was young in the 50s, and it seemed like a carefree time, and I really enjoyed the mid-50s. Do you find a lot of people want to go back there?
Yeah, especially a man in New York City who had bought the machine from me, and he's always... of course, he hasn't had the time to locate a grid point since he lives within city limits. But he hopes to activate this hyper resonator over a grid point, probably like towards the end of '98, in order to travel back to the year 1956, which I believe he will succeed.
Definitely.
Since he has already seen his other self in another time period.
Now, there's my next question. Let's say I went back to 1955, all right?
Yeah.
I was 10 then. 10. When I arrive in the past, am I able to operate as I can here? Can I touch things?
Oh, yeah,
Will I be seen by people?
Yeah, certainly.
I can talk to people?
Yep.
But if I try to alter anything...
It shifts you over into another time.
So, in other words, I can't screw with time. If I go back, I've got to keep it to myself and play act as though that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Now, the obvious question is, if I go back to 55, what if I go and try to find myself? Well, wait a minute. Then I guess I'm screwing with time. I'm altering time, and it's going to shift me, isn't it?
Well, yeah, as soon as there's a rule of thumb you never want to do when you're time traveling is to run into your other self. It's just like putting two bare ends of an extension of a wire together. You know, what it does, it doesn't destroy it doesn't destroy your other self. What happens is you either fuse into him if you get too close to him, or else you end up pushing him into another dimension. And that's why a person should not
seek themselves out.
Yeah, because it can be a mess, because if you have to take the place of your other double, after you end up pushing him into another dimension or fusing into him, it could really mess things up for you.
All right. Well then, if you were to go into the past, you would arrive without a Social Security card. I mean, assuming you even arrived when Social Security existed.
Yeah.
A driver's license, any kind of ID or anything, you would be a person, surely, but you would have no ID. So, do you ever tell anybody anything about that? I mean, suppose I went back to 1500, for example.
Yeah, I know. I've often wondered how I was going to make it if I was going to move back to 1981, which I plan on doing someday, possibly within the next year or two, how I'm going to get by with my credentials.
Exactly.
But I think what you can do is still use the same ID form, still get by.
They're not going to
get too far back.
Yeah, but they're not going to like the date. I mean, if you show them a license, a driver's license,
yeah, that's true.
from 1996 or 7, they're just not going to like that at all.
Yeah, now you can still use your Social Security number, but you couldn't use your driver's license or anything else.
Now, depending, if you go way back, say to the year 1500, the language problems, the customs, that would be a hard way to go.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, you'd have to be pretty well renowned on foreign languages.
Listen, I want to give you a chance to give your address.
Okay.
Okay, you do want to give it, right?
Yeah, I sell a catalog for $1 is what I basically...
Oh, they can get a catalog for $1. And the catalog has your time machine in it.
Yeah, it sells my reports along with 2 different types of time travel devices.
Oh, 2 of them. All right.
Another experimental one that I've been working with and I'm selling through my catalog is the STM space-time modulator.
STM space-time modulator.
And this is a handheld pocket unit, but it hasn't been tested out yet for physical. Now, the hyper-resonator has been, but the STM is just designed more for those who just want to have an out-of-the-body experience.
I'm not a big experimenter with things that haven't been tested yet. I like your model that, that appears to work.
Yeah.
Well, now we're so close to the top of the hour. We'll give out the address after the top of the hour, I guess. May I ask one more question? How long does it take you from the minute you begin building one of these machines until you've got the finished model ready to ship off to somebody? Some prospective
usually on the average of 3 to 4 days to build one.
Oh, that's quite a project.
Yeah, it is. It takes me roughly around anywhere from 9 to 12 hours to build one.
Are there any exotic parts that are hard to get hold of, or is it just a lot of manually intensive labor?
There's a lot of manually intensive labor, and I have 3 already built that are in stock now, and I usually keep 3 or more units in stock
on the shelf
in case I get a lot of orders.
Yeah. Oh, I understand. Well, if you've only got 3 in stock now. All right, hold on, Stephen. Hold on, and just get your address in mind. We'll do that when we come back and take phone calls. This is the American CBC Network.
The senior Democrat on the House Ethics Committee has turned over a tape of a controversial phone call made by House Speaker Newt Gingrich. The Florida couple says they made the tape and passed it on to Representative Jim McDermott. He has declined to comment on the matter, but Republicans aren't being so bashful.
It's a crime. 40 million Americans rely on a cellular phone every day for business or personal affairs. We just can't have citizens or members of our government abusing that process.
That's New York Republican Bill Paxton. Others are calling for McDermott's resignation.
This is the CBC Radio Network.
It certainly is. Good morning, everybody. My guest is Stephen Gibbs. He has a workshop and a finishing shop on a farm in a location you're about to hear about, and he builds time machines. Real, physical time machines. If you want to talk to him, your opportunity is about to manifest itself. In this timeline, anyhow. So we'll get back to him in a moment. And if you've missed the first hour, we devoted to a technical explanation of how his machine works, and he told us. The second hour, we talked about the nature of time travel. This hour, it's your turn. You want to ask questions? Great. And I know you do, because the phones are going nuts. Well, all right, back to my guest, Stephen Gibbs. You want to know more about him? Go to my website now. There is a link to Strange Magazine that did an extensive article on Stephen Gibbs and his time machine. It's on my website. Go up there, www.artbell.com. You'll see a link to Miss Gibbs' article. Directly take you straight over, and you can read the article and ask questions from that or from what you've heard here. If you've missed a lot of it, that'll fill you in to some degree. All right, we're about to go to the lines, but I have promised, and so I am going to allow Steve to give his address out. That's all you're going to give out is an address, right?
Yeah.
And for like $1, people can get a catalog which has your time machines in it, and then they can decide if they want to go any farther, or they just want to have a time machine catalog, not something you get every day.
Yeah.
All right. What is, it's Stephen Gibbs, Gibbs, right?
Yep.
And what is your address?
My address is RR1.
RR1.
Box 79. Clearwater. Nebraska. And the zip is 68726.
68726. All right. Stephen Gibbs, RR1, Box 79, Clearwater, Nebraska, zip code 68726, right?
Yep.
And you've got a little catalog.
Yeah.
A time machine catalog.
Yep.
And then if they want to order one of the time machines, if you get a bunch of orders, you said you've got 3 sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Well, see, Stephen, I've got a lot of listeners, millions even. And so you could get sort of backlogged.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you should then inform people, I guess, of how long a wait somehow it's going to be if you get real backlogged.
Yeah, that's what I plan on doing.
Yeah, all right. All right. Please, Art, ask your guest if it is possible to bring something back from the past. Say I wanted something small, like a pack of pre-war Green Label Lucky Strike cigarettes, very politically incorrect. Could I bring them back, say, from 1935? That would be cool. Thanks, Dan, in Eugene. Could you do that?
Yes, you can. Mike Mazurkowitz over in Great Falls was able to retrieve a newspaper back from the year 1945.
Really?
Now, some objects can stay in the present time frame without running the risk of anything happening to it. But then other objects, after the space of something like 3 to 4 days, will begin to fade out on you.
Fade out?
Yeah.
Fade out. Fade out. Cool. That's kind of like, what was that movie? What was that movie on TV? About the people in an aircraft airliner who went back in time. All right, anyway, those things, too, began to fade out. So a physical object cannot necessarily stay in the wrong timeline very long.
No, unless, of course, it was somewhat predestined to stay there. I don't know. I think certain laws apply to retaining an object from another time period, depending on whether or not it was stolen or obtained by natural means.
Could you ask Steve what would happen if you went back in time and something happened and you got killed back there somehow? Would you be dead back there only, or would you be dead in both times, past and present?
You'd be dead back there only.
Oh, no kidding. So if you went back to 1500 and somebody ran you through with a sword, you'd be okay here, unless you were locked back there, and then you'd be in trouble. Or you're not sure about that?
No. Well, if you died in another time period, let's see. If somebody ran a sword through in another time period, for example, you die in the other time period.
Yep.
No question about it.
But would you come back here and be alive? Maybe with a...
Not if you're dead, I mean...
Okay, so in other words, dead is dead. All right, Art, how does Ms. Gibbs know that an ICBM, the one you talked about, wasn't being launched to break up, say, a meteor? In other words, how do you know that it was a war that was underway, that you saw?
The reason why I knew that was because I saw bodies falling from the sky.
Oh, God.
From the, how can I put it, the air battle that was going on.
I see.
There was just so many people being killed in the air that, at first, you know, I thought it was rain. Then I started looking closely at what was falling from the sky, and it was body parts.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. That is horrible. All right, here we go to the telephones. This should be an interesting experience. There will be some people, Stephen, I can tell you right now, who are going to say things like, you're making this up as you're going along. And that can't be, because they did this article in Strange Magazine on you when?
Oh, geez, I think it was back in 94.
94. So they did that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So you can't be making it up as you're going along, because...
94, it's either 94 or 95, I think. I can't be certain because there was an area there where it overlapped between 2 years.
All right, if somebody comes on and says to you, Gibbs, you're as crazy and loony as anybody I've ever heard, time travel, it absolutely can't be true, what do you say to someone like that?
Well, you either have the faith or you don't.
All right, one last question, then we go to the phone. I've interviewed a guy named Mike Markham, who I nicknamed Madman Markham. He is back near Kansas City, Missouri, and he has built this incredible contraption, which began as a Jacob's ladder. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yes.
Okay, then he's got these rotating electromagnets, and he's got this giant thing built in a warehouse, and he's developing 3 million volts, and he's going to walk through this thing, and he's trying to achieve what you say you've already done, time travel.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that Mike is going to fry himself like an overdone French fry.
It sounds like it.
So I'm wondering if Mike ought not consult with you. Now, your device does utilize an electromagnet using 110 AC volts.
Yeah.
Is it UL approved?
What do you mean UL approved?
You know that little sticker they got on things that says UL approved? Never mind. I didn't mean to ask you that. All right, here comes some phone calls. Let's see what happens. First time caller line, you're on the air with Steve Gibbs. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles. All right.
I just want to, first of all, let Steve know that I'm just asking questions so I can, try to help better understand it.
That's fair. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to dispel what he's created.
Go ahead.
Earlier he talked about how you couldn't maybe travel if it was under false pretenses or greed, as he said.
Right. I tried the greed question.
Right, exactly. So if we're dealing with an object that is capable of understanding and manipulating the complexities of time travel, why would it be affected by something that is merely a contrived human moral?
All right. In other words, why does morality... Now, I asked you, Stephen, whether you would sell me a machine if I stated my motive was greed. You said no. But his question goes to the 0-point energy or the God force.
Yeah.
In other words, so how do you answer that?
That's a good one.
Why does that force care what your motives are?
Well,
and look, there are questions that I understand that you could not answer. I don't think I could either. We're getting into questions like, where does the sky end or something, or about God.
Well, I would say, if it goes so far as to harm other people, then, why is the Creator going to allow that person to make the jump?
All right. I think that's fair to leave there. I mean, I don't expect you to have the answer to that one. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Steve Gibbs. Hi.
Hi, good morning, Art and Steve. It's John in Dublin.
Dublin where?
California.
All right.
Knowing your timeline, Art, that if you got the old Kingston Field thing, you should put it on for the next round. Did he ever return?
You mean the guy stuck on the train, right?
Roger.
Yeah.
My questions for Steve are the grid parts. Are there grid parts in water? Do you know, Steve?
Is that over in California, you mean?
Well, anywhere. No, it seems like that'd be a safe place to pick.
Oh, he's saying, can you find grids on water?
Oh, I see. Oh, I misunderstood that. Yes, I would imagine so. Yeah, you might be able to even obtain a little bit better results if you could activate it over a body of water.
Okay, now how do you come back? Does the machine go with you?
Only if you program it to go with you. If you don't program it to go with you, only the electromagnet will move.
Oh, no kidding. Wait, as a matter of fact, thank you very much, caller. Tell us a story. There was a guy who made a jump, and something broke, didn't it?
Yeah. It sliced his unit into two parts because he didn't program it to go with it.
So it cut it in half?
It sliced the connections between the electromagnet and the unit. That's what it did.
So he ended up on the other end, wherever he went, with one piece and some dangling wires.
Yeah, basically with the electromagnet, the unit stayed behind, and he didn't want to try that again. So next time on the second jump he made to another year, I think, to 69 or something. I can't remember for certain, but the second time he made the jump, he then programmed the information into it, and then both the machine and the electromagnet went with it.
Now, this is really important, Stephen. When you sell a time machine to somebody, does it come with a good instruction manual?
Yes, it does.
I mean, that seems very important so that people don't do that kind of thing, because it would be really upsetting to go back to, say, 1500 and be there with just a piece of it and dangling wires. You'd go, oh, man, or even something else.
Yeah. Well, that's if they would happen to accidentally get locked into that time period. Now, if they didn't get locked, they would automatically return after 6 to 9 hours.
Yeah, see, that goes to the question that a lot of people have faxed. And they say, this is crazy, because there wouldn't be any 115-volt outlet in 1500, so you're up the proverbial creek.
Yeah.
And again, your answer is, well, you can program it two ways. One, to go back and stay there, in which case, tough beans, you're at your new home, or you will automatically return, you said, in 6 to 9 hours.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Hello, good evening, Art Bell. Good evening, Stephen Gibbs.
Where are you, sir?
I'm Tim in St. Louis.
All right, Tim.
I have two things. One, a statement, which is that, you should contact Mike Markham, or somebody out there should call him just so he can correlate data, if nothing else.
I know. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up getting abducted, though.
Oh, did he?
Yes, some time trackers, or some MIB agents, hunted him down back in 69.
Are you talking about Markham?
Well, Mike Mazurkowitz.
Oh, Mazurkowitz.
No, I'm talking about Markham.
Oh,
Madman Markham. He's talking about Madman Markham. You don't really know Madman. You ought to.
No, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, and the other thing is a two-part question. The first part is, if you go back in time and you do alter an event and it stumps you over into another dimension, what happens to your double in that dimension? Are you just sitting there next to you as a double, just like you would be if you went back in time, just say when you were a little kid or something?
No.
The part of that question.
Well, let him answer the first part. All right.
Okay.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be shifted over to a universe where your other self wasn't there.
Wow. So, like, you'd change the event and there wouldn't even be another person to confuse things.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, maybe I'll still ask the second part anyway, even though that kind of covers it, which is that, you said that, like, one of the ways that you attune this device by, like, you, like, concentrate on the time that you want to go back to.
Yeah.
Can you also attune this device in such a way, like somehow say trade places with another self in another dimension that wants to be where you are and you want to be where they are?
Yeah, I think so. There was a friend of mine in New York City who went by the name of...
Hold it. both of you, hold on. We'll be back to both of you and pick that up. Caller, can you hold on through the break?
Sure.
All right, stay right there then, and we'll be back to both of you. This is the American CBC Radio Network. Time travel? I see dreams of
Now, here again, Art Bell.
I mean, this has got to be the one. Time travel. Is it possible? Or, as one rather rude faxer says regarding Mr. Gibbs, medication time. Medication time. What about that, Stephen? Just before we go back to this caller who's on hold, have people talked to you about, you know, wearing the white coat that you can't get out of and going into the padded room and all that sort of thing?
No, not really. Generally, the ones who think I'm crazy or a fruitcake, they just generally never contact me to begin with.
I understand that. I understand that. And by the way, remember the movie we were trying to think of? Stephen King's The Langoliers. That was it. That was a good movie. All right, caller, you're back on the line again.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, well, my question was, considering that you said that the part of the operation of this device involved mentally concentrating on a specific time and then, like, tuning the device and then going there, would it be possible to like, mentally concentrate on, say, a time where there was another version of you that wanted to be where, you know, you are now, and you wanted to be where they are, and essentially creating places so that, you know, nothing would get messed up or altered or anything like that at all?
Yes, you can do that, quantumly.
Quantumly?
Yeah, see, there's different types of time travel. There is types where you can move back or forward through the arrows of time,
no.
or if you want to move, or when you move quantumly, that's when you trade places with another one of your bodies over in another universe. And yes, that can be done. I've not only have I done it, but a friend over in New York City has also done it as well.
Right. Here's a practical question from, let's see, it's Michael in Indiana. If you get backlogged, Stephen, in manufacturing time machines by the millions, would you be willing to sell schematics and or assembly instructions for me to make one sort of in kit assembly mode for myself to alleviate the pressure on you?
Yeah, I do that.
Oh, no kidding. All right. Here's another one. How far back in time can you go? What are the limits? Could you go back and watch the pyramids be built?
Yeah, there's practically no limit, depending on the grid point. I mean, yeah, you can go even back to the time of Atlantis if you wanted to, provided you didn't hit no barrier.
All right. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Good morning, Art. Good morning, Steve.
Where are you, sir?
I'm calling from the Monterey Peninsula. This is Michael.
All right, Michael.
Yes, Steve, if you would touch into the health aspect. Say you went into this with the common cold, possibly where if you broke your leg, maybe a birth defect. Now, going in and coming back out, would you not have a cold, a birth defect, broken leg?
All right, good question. In other words, if you, in a way, I think you did answer that already, but if something is wrong with you health-wise today, and you travel back in time, would you return with that health problem gone?
Yes, pretty much so, yes. Yeah, it rejuvenates your entire system. As a matter of fact, the more times you jump, the more it changes your physical appearance.
Oh, really? How so? In other words, you're younger?
Yeah, younger, but eventually, if you make enough jumps, eventually you become physically perfect. Or at least I guess.
Really?
And one woman was telling me she did that whenever she get a few wrinkles on her face, she just pop back to the 1960s, and then a few seconds later she'd be back and her face would be back to normal again.
You know, there's a few Hollywood Well, anyway. Let's go to the phones. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Hi, this is Sam from San Diego.
San Diego, yes, sir.
Yes, I have 3 questions. One is for Steve, and that would be, can you bring objects back from the future, or let's say people?
Okay, we already covered that. We didn't cover people. Can you bring people back?
If you take a person back, though, there's a danger there in bringing human beings, especially from the past to the future. The reason for that is they've proven in the Montauk Project that if you travel, like, say, into the future and stay too long there, you'll begin to age rapidly.
Oh.
And so the same rule would be applied if you were going to take somebody from the past to the present. There would be a danger of that individual aging quite rapidly after the space of 3 to 4 days. However, the problem could be remedied by having the individual set in a pyramid for something like 2 or 3 hours, and that might be able to stabilize his time frame.
Okay.
But other than that, it would be quite dangerous.
All right, one more question, caller.
Yes, and I was wondering if you could run into yourself in the future.
In the future?
Yeah.
I would, well, I don't know.
The same rules apply as in past time travel. You'd end up pushing your other self over into another dimension. That's what you do.
All right, Larry in Bristol, Virginia, wants to know how much one of your time devices costs to purchase.
They usually run for right around $360.
Around 300, well, that's cheap to travel on time. Cheap. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hello.
Hello, my name's Dave from Ohio.
Hello, Dave.
This is just really amazing, everything I've heard tonight. I work for a small science company here in Ohio, and the gentleman I work for, his name's Charles Story. He just wrote a book, The Grand Unified Theory Made Easy. And as he showed me this book over the last year and taught me what his theory is all about, it shows a science that would enable you to build these kinds of devices and do these type of things.
Well, does the device described sound like you heard Steve describe his?
Yes, I've seen some of Charlie's experiments, and from what I've seen, you take a transformer, and just a regular transformer, and then run electricity to coils.
Yeah.
And these coils have reversing fields.
Yeah.
And these reversing fields have caused some really strange phenomena that we've documented and been working with, and all along we believe that we could build something like this, and that this is the technology of the future. There's the new geometry. There's a new geometry they have based on hyperspace that I've seen that has been worked on, and everything here fits together. I just wanted to call in and let you and Steve know that, geez, I just think this is really it.
Given an opportunity, caller, would you travel, and if so, where?
You know, I would like to travel. I believe that everything, I've done some theological studies, and I do believe that the Earth is changing. I believe that if you did go to the future where even the remote viewers haven't been able to see anything,
yep.
I believe that there's still something going on there. Maybe we don't have the consciousness, the perception.
Yeah, it just might be real lonely, that's all.
Well, if there was going to be a band playing dog whistles, we wouldn't be able to hear the music, but the music would be real.
Well, that's right.
And there might be actual living going on there, but with our narrow perception, we wouldn't be able to perceive what's actually happening in that higher dimension.
I've got you. All right. Well, listen, Stephen, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Just speculatively, all right? Let's say I'm Newt Gingrich, all right? I'm the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And I screwed up. I reported something wrong, some time ago, years ago, and they're all over my case about it. Could I travel back in time and change my report, just change it so that everything looks right and kosher, and then come back to present time, and there'd be no big brouhaha going on. Democrats wouldn't be clawing at me, trying to destroy me. Everything would be hunky-dory. Could I do that, or would that not work?
You could do that quantumly. You couldn't do that physically, but quantumly you probably could switch places with your other double and then change it.
So it could be done.
Yeah, because I have been able to move back quantumly 3 or 4 days into Earth's past, no problem.
No problem, huh? All right.
And I made an attempt once to change the present. When I got back, I found out everything around me was changed.
Wildcard line, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Hey, Stephen. Hey, Art. How's it going?
All right.
Right on. Hey, Steve, I was just curious. You think because of this, all this, you could basically be uneducated and come up with ideas that are beyond your norm of principle?
Well, I feel I get a lot of this information from the divine, and
in other words, you think a lot of the entrepreneurship, the idea for this, the inspiration for it is from God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
How big is this machine?
Oh, well, the box, I'd have to get out there.
I mean, just give me a rough guess.
Oh, roughly it would be about 6 inches. The unit, not the electromagnetic, the unit is roughly about, I would say, anywhere from 5 to 6 inches wide by 7 or 8 inches long, and then something like about 2.5 inches high.
So no problem. It ships UPS. Of course, then there's the electromagnet part that comes with it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Now, how much danger is there that when somebody does this, they would fry themselves?
Oh, there's not any danger. Not that much. Basically, there isn't any danger of getting fried unless you start working with items that I don't suggest in my instruction manual.
Okay. Well, I'm glad there's an instruction manual.
Yeah, because one woman I sold the unit to, living in New York City, who overloaded her unit with too much energy, and she tried using a ruby or something in it. And
what happened?
There was some indication that she bursted into flames.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from doing that. And if you step up the energies too damn much, for some people, that can be pretty doggone dangerous. And so, I keep it at a level that's safe for human use.
I see. All right. Well, that makes sense. All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Where are you?
East Virginia.
All right.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. If you go back to the past, and like if you're at your childhood home, can you interact with like your parents and your sisters and brothers and your friends?
Oh, that's a really good question. By the way, where is Eastern? You mean Eastern State of Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Could you do that, even though you're not supposed to meet yourself? What about going back and seeing mom and dad and sisters and brothers when they were younger?
Oh, boy. I suppose it could be done, but since you were linked up with them somehow, it might shift. It might end up shifting you. I seriously don't think you'd run into any problems there. I think you could go back and visit them.
All right. All right. First time caller line. You're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hi.
Yes, Artbell?
Yes, where are you, please?
Yes, I am in Northern California.
Yes, what is your question?
I want to say that I do not agree with any of the things that your guest is saying.
Well, that's okay.
I have been doing experimentation for some time in the areas that you are talking about.
Yes.
These things that he's talking about is using his mind, is using his electromagnetic. It makes no sense. I am doing experimentation with massive gravitational fields where we can emulate or approximate the density which is found in a neutron star. Excuse me for being somewhat nervous.
No, that's all right. You approximate the gravity of a neutron star. Now, excuse me for questioning you, but that would require more energy than I know of that we have on Earth.
Well, this is the common thought, but, and I am not at the liberty to disclose this.
Well, see, sir, you contact me privately, and I will get you on the air, or I will talk to you about this, and we'll find out how much you can disclose. Because when you make a claim, see, at least Stephen Gibbs came on here and he told us exactly how he's doing what he's doing. You're coming on here and saying I can approximate the gravitational field of a neutron star, which is incredible, but I can't disclose how I do it.
If I were to disclose this, I don't know how to explain it to you, but it would change everything about my life. The fact that I'm calling you right now and giving you this information, just the reason that I have called is I think your callers are very naive to even think that this man can do anything that he says that he can do.
All right, well,
and I challenge him to show you that he can do this right now. Let him go and get one of his devices and let us see if he can do what he claims he can do, and I will tell you he is a fraud.
Well, you know what, though? Having said that, I think you're in a wrong position to be saying that, Stephen. I knew you were going to take some criticism, and that's fair enough. But here comes a guy with criticism, making outrageous claims himself, and then saying, oh, but I can't disclose to you how I do it. So I think that we should, perhaps consider the source, and I do in this particular case. That was very unfair. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Stephen Gibbs. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Fred up in Tacoma.
Yes, Fred.
Hey, I just have a question about this health thing going back in time.
Yeah.
And coming back.
All right.
I had a liver transplant. What would happen to me?
Good question.
Oh, boy. I would imagine it would just restructure around your liver transplant then.
Would it make
should I say,
would it regrow the liver?
I would imagine so. Yeah, I would say it would be. It would rejuvenate everything. It would replace the liver transplant that you had with another one.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Much.
Listen, Stephen, we're coming to the top of the hour here. Are you real tired, or can you do one more hour?
I'm going to have to let you go pretty soon because it's 4 o'clock here and I got to get there.
Sleep. Sleep. Well, listen, my friend, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your being here. And we'll do it again sometime, okay?
Sure, sounds great.
All right, Stephen Gibbs, thank you, and good night. This is CBC.
In a moment, we're going to talk about time travel with none other than Stephen Gibbs, back on Coast to Coast after a nearly 4-year hiatus. He's next on Coast to Coast AM. Steve Gibbs was adopted by the Gibbs family who raised him on a farm near Clearwater, Nebraska, and although never fond of school, Steve finished high school, took trade school courses in electronics, and did he learn? He gained an excellent reputation for fixing things, putting things together, installing things, while helping the family farm. Steve has devised a machine he claims will allow the user to actually travel through time. He's a noted author as well. Websites linked up at coasttocoastam.com. One of his books, Stranger Than Fiction, The True Time Travel Adventures of Stephen Gibbs, The Rain Man of Time Travel, by Patricia Reese as well. Hey, Stephen, welcome back.
Hello.
It's been a long time for you.
Yeah, it has been. It's, I'm still building and selling HDR units.
One would say after 4 years, maybe you took a little time travel trip and just came back.
Well, that's pretty close. I did travel off to some other dimensions, but I pretty much always, stay grounded, though, around in this area. But no, I'm still selling the units. I've been selling them now for the past, for at least 20 years now or better.
I mean, when did you first come on with Art, Steve?
Oh, that was 97 in
97.
January.
Okay, it's 10, 11 years now. My gosh, 11 years. Next hour, we've got a couple people who will describe their time travel experiences as we continue to talk with them. Stephen, for a lot of people who don't remember who you are, why don't you just go back to the beginning? What happened? How did you decide to come up with this? How did you experiment with it? Just tell us the whole story.
Well, I was contacted back in 1985 by a couple of time travelers who claimed they had received a schematic from the future. I think it was from around the year 2200 and something, and was actually developed, believe it or not, by one of my counterparts that existed in an alternate future Earth or dimension. And anyhow, they brought it back here and then gave it to me, which basically, in reality, I was his alternate counterpart, in hopes that I would develop it, into something that was even better. Basically, the device started out as a diode system, but since there was a lot of bugs that need to be worked out of it, it took several years before I got it to a working model stage where it could actually be used to transport people physically through time.
It's a small unit, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the box is kind of small. That's kind of like six inches wide and 5 inches long, something like on the average there, and then something like maybe 2.5 inches thick. But it's the electromagnet that weighs up to, I think it's over, nearly 8 or 9 pounds.
I know.
And go ahead.
You made one of these and gave one to Art a long time ago. I don't know if he ever used it or not. Do you?
No, he might on his cat. I know there was some stories where he hooked it up to his cat. So, but he would have had the first cat that traveled through time with it. But he never did work up enough courage, from what I was told, to actually activate it.
Well, now to make it work on an individual, what do they do? Do they put it on themselves? Do they surround themselves with it? How does it work?
Well, the first thing, the unit still sells for $360, and there's a 12-page instruction manual that comes with that tells you how to use it for healing, out of the body travel, and then for physical time travel. But now for physical time travel, you have to first locate a vortex. Now, in the manual, I tell people to how to make their own L-shaped dowsing rods out of ordinary coat hangers, and they can find them, just around their house. Every home has something like anywhere from 3 to probably a half a dozen vortexes. And anyhow, but the electronic alternative, which is a lot better for locating vortexes, and this has already been tested out extensively by several people, is the use of a handheld radio. All you got to do is turn to the AM band, lock on to any station, then walk around your house until the station cancels out. And right where it cancels out, that's right where the vortex is at.
Okay.
But anyhow, once the vortex is found, you then activate the unit over the vortex, and provided you're right on it, and provided it's either around sunrise or on the day of the full moon, at sunrise, of course, and but anyhow, if you're right on the vortex and you activate it, in less than 3 minutes, what will happen is you'll see a flash of white light or feel a sinking sensation, and then you're immediately in the other time period. Now the return function is really simple. All you do is wait about 7 hours, and then when the time energies run out, you just automatically pop back to the present.
Do you have to be in that exact spot to come back, or could you be anywhere?
No, no. You can be anywhere. Now, some people have reported that when they return back, they actually return back to the vortex where the unit was activated. But when I've made physical time jumps, I came back at the point where I was positioned at. Like, say, for example, I was at a McDonald's restaurant, and back in the 1950s. Well, if I return back to the present, I'd still be in a McDonald's restaurant. But there's some vortexes out there, though, when the unit is activated over them, it will, when their time energies run out, it pulls them right back to the same vortex where the unit was activated over. And then on top of that, you can spend, you know, anywhere from a few hours on up to 7 hours, come back, and only a few minutes will have it last.
Oh my gosh. Now, does the unit physically come with you when you travel through time?
Yeah.
It stays with you. Okay.
Yeah, so long as you're touching it. Now, the problem is with this unit is if the person isn't centered on the vortex, there can be what I refer to as a delayed reaction, where they can activate it, and then it doesn't kick in until the next day.
All right, now
so that has happened before.
Can they get hurt with this thing, Stephen, or electrocuted?
No. It's you know, I've sold units since 1985, and there hasn't been one report of one case where somebody's got electrocuted.
I mean, have you had anybody call you up and say, "Hey, I want my money back. I can't travel in time"?
Yeah, but usually in that case, they probably didn't buy the unit through me. See, there's companies out there that are selling these what I call dummy replicas of the unit, and they tell people, now my units work, but these units that are being sent off to my customers, they don't work. And anyhow, they tell the customers that I build the units for them.
So you might have a little litigation here going on.
Well, yeah, and no, they're just trying to give me a bad reputation. Then they put the blame on me, and they're basically trying to convince the public that my units don't work. But as far as my own units are concerned, every unit that I've sent out pretty much since 1985, everybody has gotten rock hard results off of it.
Didn't MTV do a story about you last year? They tried to pick up a unit and tried to disappear.
Yes, but the problem there was not only did this gets really complicated, but I actually didn't do that interview. There was an interview that took place, but I conducted the interview in another dimension. But the interview that I heard on without going into the name, on that MTV show.
I was on that too, I think.
Yeah, but the problem with the unit that they were using was, it was my unit that they were working with, but there was only one sheet of paper that came for the instructions, and anyhow and I was saying to myself, now how can you tell somebody how to travel physically through time on just one sheet of paper?
I don't think
cannot
you can
do that.
No, you probably can't. Stephen, stay with us. I want to continue talking with you about this and how it works. Next hour, two people who say that they have been time travelers will describe their experiences with us, so we'll talk with them as well. We'll also open up the phone lines a little bit later on next hour before we get into open lines later on tonight. Our guest is Stephen Gibbs, who 11 years ago gave one of these to Art. We'll be back. Hey, double duty for Ian Punnett this weekend. He's going to host Saturday and Sunday's Coast to Coast program, but Ian, let's talk about Saturday, and then you can promote Sunday tomorrow night on your show. How are you?
It's a little bit like the Minnesota Wild, winning on the road against the Detroit Red Wings, and then going on to beat the Blackhawks.
I know, it's amazing.
And that's what it's like. Yeah, two very cool things, but I'll focus on tomorrow night. Miriam Delicato is going to be on. She is a lifelong abductee, she says, and she's very believable, and I will look forward to hearing people question her coming up tomorrow night when we go to phones with her. But she says that she is a representative of the tall blonde ones.
Ah, well.
And she has a special message she has been sent to deliver, and she is also somebody who has the unique ability then to see the Nordic ones amongst us. And she'll talk a little bit about her experiences in all that regard coming up tomorrow night. Did you have a good vacation, good December off?
Yeah. It was good with the family. And seeing my little grandchild, a little baby born. It's number 4 in our family now. 4 grandchildren. It's great. There's nothing like seeing.
Do they look like Granddad?
The little boy does.
Really?
Yeah. My son looks like his mother, who is a redhead. My 2 daughters look identical to me. They have little mustaches. Hey, Ian, have a great show tomorrow and a good weekend.
Sure.
Ian Punnett, Saturday, Sunday. I'll be back in a moment with Stephen Gibbs on Coast to Coast AM. The NighthawkZone.com folks have up there somewhere on one of their pages, I think it's page 2, a picture of Stephen Gibbs's time travel machine, and Art Bell, a picture of Art holding up one of these devices a long time ago. But Stephen, let's talk on about how it works. So you took the schematics, you got these schematics, and started playing around with this. The trial and error period for you, how long did that take?
Oh, I'd say anywhere from, I would say anywhere from 3 to probably 7 years. The complete point of where I actually got it to the point where it had been pretty much perfected was about a month before I went on Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and there was some things that there were still a few things, in the previous years that I hadn't quite got a handle on, but it was just really strange. Towards the end of '96, all of a sudden, information started coming to me on how to make it so that it would operate, twice as good as what it normally would operate at. And anyhow, this when I got it finished and inserted basically the diode circuit, which looks like the seal of God, which is mentioned in the 7th chapter in the Book of Revelations. That's when I went on Coast to Coast with Art Bell for the first time.
Now, when this operates via what? You plug it in or on batteries?
Well, yeah, you plug it in to an ordinary outlet. Now, a lot of people say, well, what happens, if you're in an area where you can't plug it in? And but I always tell them, you need to get a, Radio Shack converter that plugs into your cigarette lighter in your vehicle, and then when you find a vortex, you just either drive close to where the vortex is at, or just park your vehicle right over the vortex and take your vehicle right with you through time.
Well, I was going to say, what about the return trip? If you're just hanging out there without a outlet, you're not going to be able to make it back, are you?
Well, yeah, it'll return your vehicle and yourself back safely. I kind of question a little bit about windows. Sometimes it doesn't happen often, but once I think out of every 100 or maybe even 1,000 jumps. Depends on what dimensions you end up going to, but if you decide to take your vehicle with you through time, sometimes it cracks the windshield.
I got to tell you, Stephen, as weird as this is, you sound pretty convinced that this really happens.
Oh, yeah, I've made enough physical time jumps and got a collection of books, that basically with ISBN numbers in them that basically don't even exist, that I have retrieved from other dimensions, after using the HDR unit. But like you were saying earlier, is the device safe? And, anytime you're dealing, with travel of any kind, there's always going to be a certain element of dangers involved. And the danger that comes in making time jumps with the HDR unit is if you decide to change something in your past, so often people that buy units from me are ended up, you know, saving somebody from a car accident or something like that, and they go back and they change it and come back and they find out they're missing something like 20 or 30% of their memories. And that's because they've changed their time stream. And it doesn't always bring, when you go back and change something in the past, it doesn't always bring you back to the same dimension that you took off from.
Have you ever gotten a call from a wife or a husband who said, hey, my spouse or my friend took this device? They've never come back.
No, usually when a couple takes off with the unit, usually they take off and I never hear from them again.
So you don't know if they came back.
Well, I don't know. They don't keep in touch, and so I have no way of knowing whether they came back successfully or not. Now, there's been people who have sent me letters, you know, claiming that, you know, they went back, you know, to like 2001, and they actually took a photograph of their surroundings and then brought it back with them to the present and sent it off to me. And one guy who bought a unit from me back in 2003, he actually went back to 2001 to visit his dead father. Who had passed away. He felt he didn't make the correct restitution in connection with his death, and so he went back and he gave his farewells and everything, and then he popped right back to present. And he thought that was pretty amazing, but that was the last I heard from him. And then I sold a unit to a guy over in Yugoslavia. This was back in, I think it was either 2004 or 2005. And there was a guy, since he spoke, I guess it was Russian or Czechoslovakia.
Or Yugoslavian. Who knows?
Yeah, Yugoslavian. Well, because of his language problem, a friend of his over in California had to buy the unit for him, and so his friend from California sent me the $360, and then I shipped it over to him in Yugoslavia. He gave me his address, and anyhow, I didn't think of it much at the time, but anyhow, a few weeks later, he calls up just scared half out of his gourd, and I said, well, what are you so scared about? And he said, you know that guy that you sold the unit to over in Yugoslavia? And I said, yeah. He said, he used the unit and bilocated over to my place and came knocking at my door. And he even had the HDR unit with him.
Why did he do that?
Oh, just to prove to him that it worked, and then on top of that, just to scare the crap out of him. But in any case, but then, believe it or not, then the guy bilocated over to Linden here and came knocking at my door. And now normally I don't like to answer doors because you never know who's going to come knocking.
Plus, if the machine didn't work, you know, they may want their money back, Stephen.
And but in any case, he went to 2100, and then he went on back to 1950, and then after that, I lost contact with him.
How far back can you go?
According to what Carlos Novella told me, and however, I've never made this long of a time jump. Now, he has, but Carlos Novella, you know, he went back to the late 1500s, and so we kind of speculate that it probably has a 500-year limit.
Plus or minus.
Like
Either way. Okay.
Yeah, and not only that, but before I forget about it, you know, Patricia Rest sells his book titled Carl's Story, and if they're interested in it, you know, they can go to info-gal.info and look at that book that she sells there, and these are basically documented cases of Carlos Novella's time travel jumps that he made using the HDR unit.
Yeah, Patricia's going to join us in just a few moments.
Yeah, now she sells that book, believe it or not, at $25 a book. but it's listed on her site as being sold for $12.95. But she wanted me to bring it up. You know, if people are interested in it, you know, send her $25, and that would include the shipping and handling charges on that also.
Now, you've traveled, right? You've used this device. Where have you gone? What time periods have you gone into?
Well, me and Patricia Rez, and Pat will even back me up on this one. Now, the furthest back physically I have gone into the past is the year 1977. And believe it or not, it wasn't an intentional time jump. However, I remembered when I went over to Patricia Rez's place, or Pat's place, and well, you know, once or twice a year I'd come up to her place and visit with her and her husband, and we would experiment with the HDR unit. Well, anyhow, when I came up there that day, I think this was back in either 95 or 96, we decided to wind up the unit and see if we could find the rates that would help us to see auras around people's physical bodies.
Okay.
And so we gave each of ourselves a 3-minute zap, holding the electromagnet, the open end of the electromagnet
Ouch.
over the stomach chakra.
That hurt?
And no. It's just the handles are pointing away from you, and then you're just holding the open end over the navel area.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to touch your skin. Of course, it works a little bit better if it does, but no, there's no pain involved. And anyhow, after we gave ourselves each a 3-minute zap, all of a sudden she says, "Well, look, you can see Fred's aura." That's her husband. And I was saying, "You're kidding." And I said, No, take a look. And so I looked, and all of a sudden I could see his aura, just as clear as could be, and I couldn't believe it. Well, anyhow, we decided, later on, not knowing that we had absorbed all those time energies, we went down to an angel store down in near the old Omaha area, and just before we arrived at the bookstore, after we passed this one intersection, all of a sudden it felt like we hit a huge, gigantic rut on the highway. I mean, it just felt like it just literally shook the vehicle apart.
Monster pothole or something.
Yeah, and anyhow, we looked back, to see if there was a pothole in the street, and we couldn't see any. The highway was absolutely smooth. And anyhow, when we got down there, all of a sudden we started seeing 1970 and 1960 vehicles all around us. And Pat and I were looking at each other and says, "What the hell are all these old cars doing around us?" And she was saying, "Well, who knows? Maybe they're having an old car show." And then I said, "Well, that must be it." And anyhow, we got down to the angel store, and I ended up buying some books out of the store, and I noticed that one of the books was copyright 1977. Well, when I wrote out the check, and to this day I still can't figure out how that check got cleared. But in any case, after I wrote out the check, I asked the woman that worked there, I says, "Is this check valid? Is it good? Did I make out everything correct?" And she looked at me like I was crazy. She shook her head no, and she crossed out the year, and she put down 77. And I didn't notice it at the time, but anyhow, after we left the bookstore, we again passed through the doorway, and we heard kind of like a snap or maybe a bang noise, and the next thing we knew, we started seeing modern vehicles around us again.
Go ahead, Steve. Finish up.
But anyhow, what really convinced her, she wasn't convinced that we were back in 77, so she went back up there a few days later with a friend to see if the bookstore was still open that we had been in, and it looked like it had been closed for over 10 years. And so it basically proves that we were back there. I don't think it was, the past that we remember. I think it was some sort of an alternate past. But we were there for something like about a couple hours, and then we returned back to the present.
Can you control the time period you're going back to or into?
Yeah, you can set the year, month, and day up on the dials, and you set that up radionically. using the rubbing plate.
Okay, now, how does it work? What happens? You have these gizmos, you turn them on. What's going on?
Well, it's basically I keep trying to tell people this, however they never can understand it, but it's basically a zero-point particle generator, and it generates an infinite amount of zero-point energy through the power of resonance, which is set up by the diode system inside the circuit. And believe it or not, the thing actually hooks up to the Earth's power grid system, making it an extremely powerful device to operate. And it draws its energies from the power grid system and then steps it up through the zero vector and then on into your or chakra systems. And then, but the way you basically set up the year, month, and day is you state the question, what are the rates that will, transport my physical body and all of its components to the, say, for example, January 1st, 2000. And while you're turning each of the knobs, you're stroking the rubbing plate until your fingers stick on the rubbing plate. And as soon as your fingers stop on the rubbing plate, that indicates the dial setting that will feed your soul energies into the unit that will then take you basically to wherever it is you want to go.
And that is pretty accurate within a few days or right on the spot?
Well, it's like I tell people, the Lord has blessed my units. And when people, want to go back to a certain year, month, and day, they can pretty much go back, to pretty much any time they want to. But if it's not in accordance with the Lord's will, then the Lord takes you back to wherever He wants you to go to. And, see, there might be dangers involved in a time jump that the person is not aware of, because there are some pretty damn dangerous dimensions out there that you don't want to step foot in. And, where there's wars going on, and God only knows, what's happening in the United States. And each time you go back into the past, you see, you hit a different dimension. Like, say, for example, you go back to January 1st, 2000. Okay, each time you go back there, you're going to hit a different dimension because people are constantly making choices that are changing their future.
Has anybody ever come back and they got sick because of the traveling?
Well, there has been some reports on, the first or second jump, there's kind of like a slight jet lag effect.
Yeah.
But then after that, it doesn't bother them anymore after that. But so far, though, usually, now that was the early models, though, that happened a lot on. Now, in recent years, the improvements that I have done on the unit has not led to any jet lag effects as far as I know.
All right, stay with us, Stephen Gibbs. We're going to have two time travelers join us next hour before we go into open lines. I'm George Norrie, and we'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast, AM, 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 AM. Okay, we're going to bring in two people this half hour. First half, Patricia Reese is joining us, along with Stephen Gibbs. Patricia, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good. Tell me a little bit about the relationship with Stephen and your time traveling experiences.
Well, I don't know if he's told you, but I am a newspaper reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I work for an out-of-state paper, and I do that through the computer and a phone system, which is kind of crazy, but anyhow.
But convenient.
Yes, it is. It's very convenient. But at the time I met Steve back in the early 90s, I forget the exact year, and a friend of mine had told me about him, and he said he was, he didn't say time travel exactly, but he said he had a device where you could enter another dimension. And I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. And so I contacted him, and he came up to Omaha and gave me the information for an interview. And then I wrote an article for Prediction Magazine, and that's how it all got started.
Okay, on the face of it, a person invents a machine of schematics given to him from time travelers. You would think that's a little far out, wouldn't you, Pat?
Terribly. But I belong to a group of people that were into this sort of thing. We studied UFOs. We studied, just all kinds of abduction experiences, whatever, and Native American prophecies, you name it, they were into it. And I had done a story about them and gotten kind of involved with the group. And so when this came up, I thought it would be an interesting story. And I wrote it up, and, it took off from there.
What did you think of Stephen Gibbs?
Well, he struck me, of course, I was raised in western Iowa, and he just struck me as a typical Midwestern farm boy.
Who understood electronics.
Yes, in fact, this is what amazed me. It would be, how do I explain this? It would be if you have somebody that has an average education and doesn't seem to have had extraordinary exposure to scientists or important people or something, can sit down and discuss quantum mechanics. And that got my attention quickly. He seemed to have a real handle on things, and I've always been interested in that sort of thing myself. And it just amazed me. Here's a guy that milks cows and, pots the hogs and whatever.
and invents a time machine.
Yes, but he seems to have an understanding of, like I say, of quantum mechanics and time and space and time dilation. And
Pat, have you ever hooked up the hyperdimensional resonator to yourself?
Yes.
And traveled?
Well, yes, you could call it that way. I had a strange experience.
What happened to you?
Okay, Steve came up and was running this, and I had some friends that came to our house to see it. Okay? And the lady had a physical health problem, and we thought it might help her. And so we ran the device for several hours in our house. And it just seemed like a nice day, interesting. And Steve went to where he was staying, and my friends went home, and we ate dinner and went to bed.
And the device is on?
No,
right?
We turned it off.
Oh, you turned it off,
and
right.
he took it with him.
Okay.
And then something really strange happened. First of all, what happened is I got up in the middle of the night. I wanted a glass of water, and I happened to look out over across where the parking lot was, and I saw these very strange clouds. I'd never seen them before since they looked like UFOs, and I thought, what on earth is that? And I flipped on the switch, and it had never done this before, but there were sparks that went all over our chandelier.
Jeez.
And I screamed, and my husband came into the kitchen to see what happened, and I said, look, and I was pointing across, the way where I'd seen the UFO clouds, and there was nothing there. It was gone. And Steve said later that I had probably attracted some attention from alien force, and it had come to check in and see what kind of a device had been, turned on in our...
Were they hiding behind these clouds, Stephen?
As far as I know, Grays use a cloaking device on their saucers in some locations that makes them appear like clouds, floating above houses. But usually the friends that I've associated with or the people that I've talked to state that in most cases they hardly ever use cloud coverings to unless it's in a like a heavily populated area, such as a city.
Yes, and this was in a city, but the most extraordinary thing wasn't that, if you can believe this. The next night I put on a movie, and I was watching a movie, and my husband went to work, and the kids were out of the house and everything, and Shane came on. The Alan Ladd movie?
Oh, yeah, that's an oldie, sure, but goodie.
And I've seen it many, many times, and I thought, oh, what the heck? And I was sitting there, watching it, and I know it well enough that I know who says what to when and when they say it. And all of a sudden, Alan Ladd is reciting lines that Van Heflin had. And Van Heflin is reciting lines that Alan Ladd had always said. And I thought, what in the world? And I watched it, and there were several other things. It blew my mind, and I thought, am I going crazy? Well, it ended the same way. The little boy yelling Shane, and he's riding up in the mountains and all that.
Alan Ladd on a box, but nobody knew it.
Right, exactly. And it just sort of blew my mind. And, of course, then my husband came home later that evening, and I just kind of seemed upset about everything. But do you know, that never happened again. I saw the movie several months later, and it was back to normal again.
Why haven't you ever traveled through time with this device?
Well, that's the point, though. I think I have. I think that I talked to somebody one time, and they said that sometimes if you have moved into a different dimension, that there are only one or two things that are different. In other words, you can look around the room, and everything can be just fine, but you can see something totally goofy on TV. You might have one or two objects that are different. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it doesn't require necessarily something that really got my attention was somebody made this statement: if you start getting into the idea that life is a field, it explains a lot of very strange things.
Now, as a reporter, have you interviewed anybody else who might have been hooked up to this HDR and traveled?
Yeah.
What do they tell you?
A lot of them have had very, very strange experiences. This Carl that Steve has mentioned, he told me he'd had several strange experiences, and I said, well, why don't you email them? I said, just, write them out and email them to me. And he sent, oh, heavenly days, he sent enough for a book. And my son saw them. I forget what circumstance I let him. They were sitting on the kitchen table or something, and my son found them. And he's in his 20s, and he was reading them, and he says, hey, Mom, this guy is a fantastic science fiction writer. So, I don't know, apparently he thought it was a story he was telling me.
Pat, you ever come across a guy named John Titor? T-I-T-O?
Oh, I've heard of him, yes.
Oh, yeah, I sold the unit to John Titor.
Wait a minute. You sold a unit to John Titor?
Yep. Yeah, he's in my record books.
In what year did you sell him a unit?
Well, it was in another dimension, so it probably was one of his counterparts. But in any case, I did sell him a unit, and but John Titor was the type of person that believed in artificial vortexes, and I always caution people, not to activate these things around artificial vortexes because it can transport you, into midair or to another planet and leave you stranded. And anyhow, he later had it up on eBay because he said, according to what I saw on his website, that he activated the unit, and the next thing he knew, he was falling towards a large body of water inside of his vehicle. And he was screaming his head off. And then just before he hit the large body of water, he saw a flash of white light, and next thing he knew, he was on ground level again. And so it scared the living crap out of him, but, maybe I should put that in my manual, not to mess with, artificial vortexes.
Well, he claims he was from 2034, Stephen.
Yeah, no, I remember. No, I actually did sell him a unit, and this was back, I thought it was in 2003. Anyhow, he was quite enthused about it, but I told him, be careful about artificial vortexes.
All right, Stephen, stay with us. I want you to stay with us. Pat, thank you. We're going to take this break and come back with another time traveler. His name's Dennis. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Stephen Gibbs, our special guest. And now Dennis joins us. And Dennis, let's bring you in here and talk with you a little bit. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Norrie. How are you?
Great, thank you. Tell me about your experience here with Stephen and this device, the HDR device.
Well, Steve and I go back a long ways. I talked to him about 6 years ago, and I couldn't get my wife to believe that the machine worked. And so it took a little prodding. So this year I talked with Steve, and I said, hey, Steve, I'd like to buy your machine. He said, are you sure? I go, yeah, I'm sure. This is the year. And he had sent it to me right about 2 days before Thanksgiving.
And
And I got this little black box in the mail with 2 little knobs and some funny little head cord and all these neat little gadgets. And my wife looked at it and she started to laugh, at least at that time. And I looked at it and I said, well, you know, it's got to be something to it. So the very first night, I said, I'm going to go for it. I didn't want to physical time travel because here in Minnesota, it's cold, and I'm not going to go out and try to find a vortex.
Oh, that's true.
So I decided to stay home. I wanted to astral travel. I do it every so often, unintentionally, of course, and I thought, well, maybe this thing will help me go back into time. And I'm not sure what year this was, but I placed the coil around my head. I dialed the unit while I was doing the rubbing plate.
Were you scared?
Oh, heck no. No,
Not at all.
I was
Okay.
expecting something exciting to happen.
Yeah, they were
well,
going to blow up your brain or anything like that. Huh?
Well, that thought did cross my mind twice. And my wife was watching me. She was kind of laughing a little bit. You know how wives are sometimes. And I said, okay, I'm done. She said, that's it. I said, that's it. So I laid down, shut the light off, and fell asleep. And then it's what seemed like seconds, and it could have been an hour, I'm not sure. But I ended up in this place, and this guy come up to me and said, Dennis, I want to show you my HDR. I said, really? So he opened the package, and he showed me the HDR. It looked just like the one I had, but it had 3 crystals etched in the right-hand corner, and I started touching it. It made some screechy sound, and the guy said, hey, you're going to ruin my HDR. And he puts it back in the case and so forth. Well, that next morning I got up, and it really was kind of strange. And I was on the Internet just doing some research, and I happened to find a picture. And I said to my wife, look, that's the same guy I talked to. And she goes, really? I go, yeah. And here it was Stephen Gibbs.
In the flesh.
Never seen him before in my life. So I talked to him, but never seen him before.
So do you use this on a regular basis, Dennis?
Well, 90% of the time now I use it for radionic killing. It's a wonderful radionic killing instrument.
It kind of puts you, the resonance is important. I understand that, and I've always been a believer in that.
Mm-hmm.
But why not traveling? Why don't you just keep going way out into the future?
I did, sir. I actually did. I had went, my first experience, and I'm thinking it was about 3 weeks since I had the machine at the time in November last year, I can say now. I ended up into an era that I knew it was around the 1800s. Now, this was astrally because I didn't go to a physical vortex. I just ended there. And I saw this lady. She had this bonnet on, and she had the long, old dress, and she spoke kind of like an old German, because I was very fascinated how she was talking to me. And I went and followed her into the store, and I seen all these old antiquated equipment, well, that we would consider antiquated today, that were brand new, sitting on a table for people to buy. And I seen other people come in, they were purchasing these things for their farms, and everybody was looking at me really, really strange. And I'm like, what the heck? Where am I? And I didn't see a sign saying 1800s, but after I left that dimension, so to speak, I realized what dimension I was in. The next one I traveled, it was 1860. You know how I knew that for sure?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
They were firing cannons.
I'm going to read the instructions here to this thing. It says the hyperdimensional resonator is connected to a 110-volt outlet. The dials return to a specific day, month, and year. This is done while the coils are placed around the head, and the resonator is activated. The electromagnetic is placed over the solar plexus for 3 minutes. The unit is deactivated. Coils are removed, and the subject should find him or herself projected into the future. Is it a weird feeling?
It is when it catches you off guard. When you go in with an attitude of, well, whatever happens, happens, and that's my suggestion to anyone who's ever thought of getting one or has one, a lot of things can happen to you.
Stephen, has any scientist tried to get a hold of you or analyze the device or anything like that?
Well, there have been a few scientists. There was a couple of scientists down in Florida, and I kind of forgot their names. They put up their research data on the internet, but I don't know, their website address or anything like that. And they claim to have gotten results. One scientist said, it might take a little time, but he says eventually you'll find yourself in another time period. But I've also had, several doctors buy units from me, and it's kind of interesting to find out what happens to them a few months when the American Medical Association finds out that they got one.
Mm-hmm.
They usually get canned.
Really?
And I've sold, my gosh, I must have sold units to nearly a dozen doctors or better since 1985. And about a few months after, or a year after, I sell them again, and all of a sudden I hear a news report on some channel stating, some guy got brought before the board and lost his license because he was using a device that wasn't medically approved.
And it's your device.
Yeah, basically. And, of course, there's no way they can prove it's my device, but by the same token, but no, what's really interesting about all these doctors is that they've cleared up hundreds of these patients' problems with the device, and then, it pees off the AMA to such a degree that because they're interested in making money, they don't want to see people getting healed.
Well, we saw what they did to little Hoxie when he tried to have his cancer clinics all over the place. They seemed to shut him down. So, Dennis, as you use this for healing, do you use it on other people or just yourself?
I used it on my wife first. She was the first guinea pig. And it worked really, really well for her.
Nice guy.
Yeah, and I, so in a way, but anyhow, a friend of mine had bad knees. And he says to me, what can you do with this device? I said, well, just why don't you email me your picture, and I'll put it in the HDR. I'll set the rates. As soon as I get a stick reaction, I'll run it for a couple of days. And he also said, well, how about general, energy? Because he said, I've been pretty well, pooped out for the last couple of months. I said, not a problem. I ran this machine for approximately 3 days. He calls me up and he says, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up. He says, I had more energy than I know what to do with. My knees are almost 60% better. And this is just 1 out of 7 to 10 people I've been treating in the past 3 weeks.
That is amazing indeed. Okay, thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. By the way, Stephen's website is up there at coasttocoastam.com. It's a bizarre story. It's been going on.
All right, go ahead. You're listening to the Edge Radio program, a show so hot, your radio might catch on fire.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Edge Radio broadcast. On our Newsmaker line, we have with us, and here we go, guys. Stephen Gibbs, you've been a time traveler. Why don't you tell us about it and say hello to the audience?
Yeah, this is Steve. I've been building these units since 1986, and sold something like over, nearly 800 units or better. And a lot of these people, have been traveling through time with it, and have come back to tell me about it. And usually when they call me up, they'll usually end up telling me about their experiences, or they'll end up sending me artifacts that they picked up from the past.
Really? Well, Steve, what is your control to not sell one of your time travel machines to, say, a lunatic?
Well, see, that's the purpose. See, I ask the Lord to bless these units before I send them out to my customers. And so if anybody should decide to misuse it, they're usually dealt with quite quickly.
Okay, so you mentioned God. So is God involved in this time machine?
Well, Oh, yeah, to some degree. Well, yeah, I would say so, because what people don't realize is that the unit was built on the basis of faith, and then on top of that, the unit also has the unique ability of turning people into the Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you use it, the closer you get to God.
Mm-hmm. So you use your time machines as sort of an evangelistic tool?
Not really.
But it happens that way, is what you're saying.
It brings people closer to God. It's like I tell people, it's always a good idea to ask the Lord for guidance before you use one of these devices, because you have no way of knowing where you're going to end up then.
Well, perhaps when somebody is translating back into time, maybe they go past some gates of hell and they come back saying, maybe I need to know the Lord now.
Well, no, I always mention in my manual, it's always a good idea to pray first before they use it, and then after they say their prayer, they then activate the unit then over a grid point or vortex, and in less than 3 minutes, they usually end up seeing a flash of white light, and then the next thing they know, they're instantly in either the past or the future, depending on how the unit has been set.
Mm-hmm.
And, each dial setting takes you to a different time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was talking to Patricia Ross there in the first half hour, kind of get some documentation and some questions built up here to ask you in the second half. But the question came up, can you guarantee that someone who uses this time machine does not materialize inside solid rock?
Well, that's the purpose of prayer. So long as you pray first to the Lord before you use it, nothing bad will ever happen to you.
Guaranteed? Guaranteed, or your soul back, or what? I mean, you can't.
When I say that, if you view my website, which is on hdrenterprises.net, I state explicitly on page 1 that I offer no guarantees on these units, because as soon as you offer a guarantee, usually you wind up with a lawsuit, because of the fact there would be some old lady you might end up selling the unit to who says, well, this guy's a dummy, I can get all of his money.
Okay, let me ask you this, Steve. On the dial settings, do you turn the machine on, you go back into time, how do you get back?
Oh, it has an automatic return function on it. After you reach the time that you wish to travel to, in usually less than 7 hours, you then just simply pop right back.
Yeah. Now, before you had humans time traveling, did you say test an animal, like send a cat back in time?
No,
Did you send anything back in time before you experimented on humans?
No, I experimented on myself first before I started.
Well, that was kind of risky.
Experimenting on animals.
Well, see, wouldn't that be kind of risky if, say, you didn't build the machine right and you just couldn't get back? But I guess you assumed because God gave you the directions of the machine that you could get back. You had a lot of confidence in that?
Well, yeah, the information was channeled to me by the Lord back in 1986. See, I was contacted by some time travelers back then, and who actually no one knows where the original circuit originated from. So there's some rumor that went around that the original circuit that was sent to me was stole from somebody else, and then they stole it from a guy down in Florida, and then that circuit originated from some time travelers who came in from around the year 2030, and stuff like that, and no one knows where the circuit actually began, and it's like I tell people, that's the reason how God is able to interact with it, because it has had no beginning and will have no end.
And now, Patricia and I speculated in the first half hour of this show that perhaps the government may have a version of your machine, and perhaps maybe even the ancients before the flood had the design for time travel. Do you agree with that?
If the government has a design for it. It's sending people to hell because the device was built on the aspect of faith. Anybody who tries to duplicate or copy it, if they're not guided by the Lord, they're going to run into problems because, or they're not simply just going to stay around very long because there's such a fantastic amount of opposition against it that anybody who tries to sell my unit other than me, that they usually don't stay in business very long.
Sort of that's God's built-in pattern to make sure that the evil people don't get it.
Yeah, it's really strange because, you know, I'll see a company come out and start selling it, and all of a sudden, shoot, the company folds up. And I've also heard some really bad rumors about these other companies who are selling my HDR unit that they're blocking their chakra centers. One guy said that, well, I guess I shouldn't mention any names, but anyhow, you know, you get the general idea.
Yeah, well, perhaps you could go back in time and steal the patents back out of their office. Have you, so you have went back in time yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm always going physically through time.
Okay. Now, do you speak to the people that when you go there?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And,
I've gone...
Are you dressed in your current garb when you go back in time? Do they say, why are you dressed so funny? Or do you appear in the
I make short jumps in time. See, I sold a unit to a guy by the name of Carl down in Florida. Now, he makes long jumps, but I only maybe travel back maybe a few years into the past or a few years into the future. I feel long-distance jumps are much too dangerous.
Now, is this time travel machine, is it something that you connect to? Does it zap you with some voltage? Or does it create a vortex in the room you're in? How does that work?
Well, yeah, it creates a vortex. It sets up a resonance field, or should I say, it sets up 2 points of resonance. And but no, it transmits an electromagnetic hyperfield into the individual, and which basically conditions the aura for whatever the purpose might be. In other words, it opens up positive heavenly doorways. It was amazing how the circuit evolved to where it is now. The original circuit that I worked with back in the mid-'80s had a lot of bugs in it. And any time that I worked with it, it would end up sending me to a bad place. Well, I was later guided as to how to get these bugs out so as to make it safe for human use. And it took roughly, I would imagine, on the space of 10 years before I was able to get all the bugs out of it.
Well, let me ask you this, Stephen Gibbs. Is that device, your time machine, is it in any way configured like the government used for the Philadelphia experiment?
Well, they were... No, they worked with something a lot more dangerous. They were experimenting with black holes, and Tesla knew it, and that's the reason why he didn't want to partake in the experiment. Now, I heard stories that one of my counterparts over on another timeline is actually building units similar to what I'm building, but are powered on black holes.
No. Well, during the Philadelphia experiment, isn't it reported that some of the shipmen materialized in the bulk? Half of their bodies were part of a bulkhead?
Yeah, but you see, when you start working with black holes, you're starting to work with something that's just downright frickin' dangerous, because should one of those things happen to escape the containment field that they're in, boy, you've got one serious problem on the hands that can suck up the entire planet.
Yeah. Well, Steve, how can you guarantee that once you create that vortex, that say something evil from the other side doesn't try to materialize in this realm through that hole?
Well, the guarantee comes through faith. I mean, if a person is guided, by the Lord, they will be given the incentive to purchase one of these devices, because usually the people who call me up are people who receive visions or are contacted by their other selves from either the past or future.
Yeah.
And I've gotten several people who've called me up that swear up and down that back in their youth, their counterparts contacted them and said that someday, you know, you're going to be buying one of Steve Gibbs' HDR units. And, you know, it's something that's based on the aspect of faith, you know.
Well, Stephen, that brought us to another question with Patricia in the first half hour. Have you ever met yourself in the past?
No, but I have been contacted by one of my counterparts from an alternate line, both by telephone calls.
Alternate line? Are you saying another dimension or another?
I guess he came in from an alternate future timeline, but he called in one day on my answer machine, and something told me, you know, not to talk with this guy, and so because you see, if you start interacting with your counterparts, there's a very immense danger of setting up a paradox. Where it can split your line or even erase your time stream, where, you know, you can end up missing as much as possibly 30% of your memory capacity. So, you know, it's one of those things you got to try to avoid interacting with is your counterparts. And usually when a counterpart comes back and tries to contact one of his other counterparts, they usually stay about 6 to 12 feet away from the individual, and then they don't stay very long in that area, or they don't stay and talk with him for very long.
Steve, is it possible anyway, I guess you should dismiss this thought I have here, but I imagine if I'm thinking it, maybe a listener might be thinking, perhaps this electrical device of some sort creating this field, perhaps, could it alter your brainwaves and produce a sort of visionary type of thing to make you think you're in another realm, like say produce a
No, it doesn't affect the brainwaves. What it does, well, that's wrong to say that too. What happens is that it causes you to tune into the zero vector and the harmonics that it generates. See, it creates a field within a field. And there's not too many people that understand what a field within a field is. But to explain it, if you have the unit generates both an AC/DC field, and actually the AC the field is going in a clockwise direction, and the DC field is going in a counterclockwise direction. Well, whenever you have two fields that interact with one another, you get what is known as an anti-gravity field. And whenever you get your anti-gravity field, you get a time warp. And but what the unit does is that it basically tunes the brainwaves into the zero vector. It doesn't actually manipulate them. It tunes them into it.
Okay.
And that's where the person can travel through time, is when you lock onto the zero vector.
So when you materialize in a time past, do you appear in a room and say, doesn't it freak people out when you disappear, or do you?
Oh yeah, there's been several people that have been hauled away to a mental institution now because they saw one of my customers disappear. They just can't handle it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you actually disappear right into thin air. One guy called me up just about a week or two ago, and his girlfriend swore up and down that when he was transported physically back to 1895, that just seconds before he disappeared, that his body became absolutely transparent.
Steve, I have a question that came through the Fast Blast on the Edge Radio. The EdgeAM.com website. It says, can people use your device to escape the Illuminati agenda for the New World Order?
Yes, most definitely they can.
Okay, so I guess the second part of their question then is, has anybody went to the future to see what that New World Order is like?
Yep. This line actually comes to an end by July 7th of 2007. The line that we're on. All civilization on this planet gets wiped out.
Okay, let me write that down. What date's that now?
Well, actually, it's at 777, July 7th of 2007.
Okay, and how did we come up with that number? Did you go that time and you saw the end of all time, or how did that happen?
Actually, it was based on a jump that a time traveler, another time traveler, made into the future, as well as a jump that I had made. And anyhow, between the information that was compiled in another book that I was reading up on, that if things keep going on the path that they're going, there's not going to be anybody left on this planet by in the year 2007. But you see, what's really interesting, yeah, I don't want to interrupt you or anything like that, but you see, Carl, he went to the year 2150, and he asked, this is a guy that used one of my HDR units, and he asked, the people, well, what happened to the civilization back at the dawn of the 21st century? And they said, well, don't you know? And he said, no, I'm a time traveler. And he says, well, in 2006, mankind completely and totally blew themselves up by nuclear war and plagues. And he said, well, how is it then that the earth get repopulated? He says, and they laughed and they said, well, that's simple. Time travelers came in and repopulated the earth at a later date.
So the answer to the question, in the year 2525, man is still alive.
Well, actually, the time travelers don't move in until around the year 2030.
And you have met time travelers?
Well, of course, yes. But anyhow, they start to. Now, I may be a little bit off on the 2007, but I don't think I'm by far off. But that's what I've been told, and that's what Carl found out, and that's what I found out, and.
Well, I was talking to Patricia in the first half hour, Steve, and basically, I don't know, maybe you can concur or not, but if you change any part of time forward or backwards, all time would cease to exist to begin with. So it's not possible to really change anything. So if that's the case, isn't everything on the road to where it's going to be, and there's no change in it whatsoever?
Well, you can change past events, but there's a lot more effort involved in it than a person realizes. But like I tell people, it's not a good idea to go back and change something, even in their own timeline, because, unless, of course, it's something that the Lord wants them to do. Because if they go back and try to affect a change in their own past, they're going to set up a ripple that's going to erase 30%, possibly even 50% of their memories.
Is it possible just to set the machine to go back in time and to shut it off and not come back again?
You can program it to lock yourself into another line, or into the past or into the future. It would be a little bit dangerous because if you needed it to return back, then you couldn't.
So you don't recommend staying in a past or in a future or a past then?
Well, not unless it's something that is based on divine will.
Well, on the divine aspect, Steve, what purpose would God have for you to invent this machine? Because it sounds like you say you have His blessings on that.
Well, it's supposed to act as a partial rapture device to get people to safe places before the end comes.
So while the rest of us are stuck in the Great Tribulation, you're going to zap out of here in the time machine?
Well, I'm hoping if I'm found worthy, I'll be raptured out of here. Because soon the rapture is supposed to take place very quickly.
Has anybody reported to you? Do you believe in a tribulation, so to speak, or an Armageddon situation? Has anybody seen it?
Well, there was. It's hard to land in the middle of an Armageddon situation since you most likely get blown up in the process. But I knew of a guy by the name of David, I won't mention his last name. He went to 2012 and he said that mankind had already wiped themselves out completely. I mean, everything was in absolute ruins. And he said the only beings that were occupying the earth at that time were the Dracs and the gray aliens.
Okay, so you believe in aliens?
The fallen angels, yes, I do, because that's what they are.
I got another email question from a fast blast on the edgeam.com website. How do you explain the purported block of time at the year 2012, as so many other experts have said?
Well, there's a block there because I guess it's kind of like a safety valve to keep the future on some lines from being infected by this line.
So I guess what that question must mean is you can't go to that time that's been blocked off from your machine?
No, you can go to that time, but how can I say it? If somebody had impure intentions, try to get past 2012 or try to approach 2012, I don't think they could do it. They could get close to it, but they couldn't bypass the barrier. And but the ones who do have a faith in Jesus Christ, they can pretty much go to about any place they want to, provided it's in accordance with the Lord's will.
So there's a component of the Lord's will here. So was there a setting on your machine? How far in the future or how far in the past can you go with your machine?
Well, closest I've been able to estimate from the jumps that people have made with the unit is you can either go 812 years into the past or 812 years into the future. Now that's with one HDR unit. With two HDR units, the time limit doubles.
So you can connect them together and double the power?
Well, you can't really connect them together. You plug them in separately to a wall outlet, and but with two units, yeah, you could go a lot further.
So they run on conventional AC power then?
Yeah, right. Yeah, if somebody needs, however, to activate them away from a power source, because that can sometimes be a problem when you're locating vortexes, is that I often suggest to them to buy a DC to AC inverter system that plugs right into their cigarette lighter on their vehicle. That way, all you got to do is park your vehicle then over the vortex, activate the unit inside your vehicle, and you can take your vehicle right with you through time. And it'll take basically whatever it is that you touch with you, so long as it's within a 24-foot perimeter, which is basically the field strength of the unit itself.
But if you have an animal running by nearby, say a cat or a dog, and it hits that field, are they going to be stuck, or are they going to come back with you?
They're going to go back with you.
Okay, because they're in that field.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything that walks into the area, well, I guess they would have to touch the vehicle before they could they'd be transported with you, because you see, it would take whatever it is you're touching, and since Earth doesn't conduct time energies, at least not in that respect. So you see, anybody that was with you, however, in the vehicle would then be transported back with you or forwards in time.
Yeah. So
and I do that a lot myself. It's amazing too. But anyhow, that's
okay. Well, let me ask you this. In the first half hour, talking to Patricia once more, we're talking about time slippage. Is it necessary that you are you just capitalizing on a present time slippage, or does it just create that, or does it make the machine work easier if you find one?
Well, no. See, you activate the unit over a grid point, and then you basically state in your questions, what are the rates that will send you back to such and such a time period. And then as soon as your fingers stick on the rubbing plate on the HDR unit, then that indicates the dial settings that will send you back to that that time. And you set your time coordinates on the unit itself, and then you wait for the flash of white light, and then as soon as you're there, you then take off and do whatever it is you want to do some sightseeing, collect artifacts, and then bring them back with you to the present.
All right, in the final minute there, Steve, what would you like to say to the audience then? How can somebody get hold of your machine? I guess you sell them, or you have a picture of them? Well,
I have a website where people can purchase these devices, and that's at www.hdrenterprises.net.
Can you say the price on the air?
They're $360.
Okay.
And it takes me roughly around 12 hours to build each unit.
Really? So you build them for each person that orders one, you build it just for them?
Pretty much, yeah. I usually ship off. There's a big demand for these things, believe it or not. So much, in fact, I literally am swamped with orders on a constant basis. I mean, from all around the world. And I've been even seriously thinking about hiring help to help build these things. Because there's such a big demand for them.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on the Edge Radio Broadcasting, Gibbs.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Edge with Daniel Ott. To subscribe to The Edge newsletter, log on to theedgeam.com. That's theedgeam.com, where you can find out more about the guests and topics discussed on the air. The Edge is being brought to you by Internet Solutions, home of affordable website design and low-cost Internet access. Visit Internet Solutions at es4.com. That's es4.com. Until next week, for the Edge Radio broadcast, I'm Chris Moore. See you on the Edge.